The president looked at the caller ID and casually picked up the call. "Hello, Professor Jerry." In the next moment, the president suddenly stood up and shouted, "What did you say?" The carbon-based photolithographic machine has been invented. And it was invented by Lin Fan, who invented the super battery. The president's phone fell to the ground. Silence. The entire scene was silent. Everyone present knew what the invention of the carbon-based photolithographic machine and the fact that the inventor was Lin Fan meant. Once the carbon-based photolithographic machine appeared, the silicon-based chips that they had mastered would soon be completely eliminated. The silicon-based chip was their lifeblood, and now it was going to be completely abandoned by the world. In addition, they had been constantly making things hard for Dahua Group during this period of time. Lin Fan had given the super battery to Dahua Group. Clearly, they had a deep relationship. If that were the case, even if they wanted to work with Lin Fan, it would probably be an extravagant hope. The foreign chip alliance was done for. The next day the sky was clear. Ran Fei did not know what Lin Fan wanted to discuss with him about the chip. However, he still took a plane to Jiangbei. After all, this was the first time Lin Fan had asked him to go over. Besides, he could also deal with other matters in Jiangbei, have a change of environment and change his mood. It was not bad. After Ran Fei got off the plane, he took out his phone and dialed Lin Fan's number. At this moment the sky was bright. Lin Fan opened his eyes and picked up his phone out of habit. Coincidentally, he received a call. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was Ran Fei. He immediately pressed the answer button. "Mr. Lin, I'm already in Jiangbei. Should I go straight to Jiangbei University to look for you?" Ran Fei asked. Lin Fan thought about it and said, "Come to Coiling Dragon Villa directly." "All right," Ran Fei said. After hanging up, Lin Fan got up from his bed. After all, Ran Fei would be coming over later, and he could be considered a guest. He could not possibly continue lying in bed, right? When Lin Fan woke up and washed up, the director of the Institute of Science, Feng Jixiang, was standing at the school gate. He was packing around and looking at his watch. His face was filled with anxiety. "Director Feng, why don't we wait in the office?" Vice Chancellor Feng Weijian asked. "When Lin Fan comes to school, I'll get him to look for you." At 5 or 6 o'clock today, he suddenly received a call from the security captain. He said that someone was standing at the school gate early in the morning saying that he was waiting for someone. Moreover, he said that he knew him. When Feng Weijian arrived at the school gate, he realized that it was Feng Jixiang, the director of the Institute of Science. Feng Jixiang waved his hand. Then he took out his phone and dialed Lin Fan's number. This time it was not like before, where it kept ringing but no one picked up. This time it only rang twice, then Lin Fan's voice sounded. "Hello." The call was connected. Lin Fan had picked up the call. Feng Jixiang said excitedly, "Lin Fan, you finally picked up the phone. Where are you? Is it convenient for me to look for you now?" "Sure, I'm at the Coiling Dragon Villa," Lin Fan said. "All right, I'll be right there," Feng Jixiang said excitedly. After hanging up the phone, Feng Jixiang quickly ran outside and hailed a taxi. He said, "Coiling Dragon Villa." The taxi driver stepped on the accelerator, leaving Feng Weijian at the school gate in a daze. He left. Coiling Dragon Villa. Although Ran Fei had seen a lot of the world, when he walked into the courtyard of the Coiling Dragon Villa, he could not help but be surprised. There were park-like greenery, castle-like villas, supercars, luxury cars, and even private jets everywhere. The people who lived here were definitely extraordinary. Under the guidance of the security guard, Ran Fei pressed the doorbell. After a while, Lin Fan opened the door. "Mr. Lin, long time no see." Ran Fei suppressed the surprise in his heart and took the initiative to step forward and extend his hand. "Yeah, long time no see." Lin Fan stretched out his hand and the two of them shook hands. Then the two of them walked inside together. Soon, Ran Fei was attracted by the huge carbon-based photolithographic machine in the living room. "Mr. Lin, what is this?" he asked. "A carbon-based photolithographic machine," Lin Fan replied casually. "Oh, a carbon-based," Ran Fei said. Before he could finish speaking, his entire body seemed to be stuck. His eyes were wide open and his face was filled with disbelief. He turned to ask, Mr. Lin, you just said, what is this? Just as Lin Fan was about to reply, the doorbell rang. Thus he had no choice but to open the door. Lin Fan, I've finally found you. Did you really make a major discovery in carbon-based photolithographic machines? Feng Jixiang asked hurriedly. Lin Fan pointed at the carbon-based photolithographic machine and said, over there. Feng Jixiang looked in the direction Lin Fan was pointing at and could not help but ask curiously, what's this? A carbon-based photolithographic machine, Lin Fan said. When Ran Fei heard Lin Fan's affirmation, his body shook. Feng Jixiang could not wait to come to the carbon-based photolithographic machine. He said excitedly, This is a carbon-based photolithographic machine, you invented it. Lin Fan nodded, yeah. His tone was so relaxed and indifferent as if he was talking about the weather today. How do we do this? Feng Jixiang asked hurriedly. Can we make chips now? Lin Fan walked forward and pressed a few buttons. Soon, a chip the size of a pinky appeared in front of him. Feng Jixiang said with a dry throat, This is. Ran Fei did not speak. However, his eyes were fixed on the chip. A carbon-based chip, Lin Fan said. Although Feng Jixiang and Ran Fei had already realized this answer, when they heard it, their faces were still filled with surprise. Ran Fei's Dahua group had been researching carbon-based chips. Feng Jixiang represented the Hua nation government, so there was no need to mention it. The carbon-based chip that they had been researching for many years had appeared in front of their eyes just like that. This gave them a feeling that it was not real. How's the performance of this carbon-based chip? Feng Jixiang hurriedly asked. Ran Fei also cast a curious look. That was right. The carbon-based chip was out, but what was its performance? After all, a chip was not made for show. It needed to be powerful enough. If the performance was very poor, it might not be comparable to silicon-based chips at all. In that case, it did not mean much. As for the carbon-based chip data that they knew, it was completely useless. After all, they had not succeeded in developing it. Lin Fan said, the performance is all right, you can try using it in your own phone. As he spoke, he handed over the carbon-based chip. I'll put it in the chip, Ran Fei quickly said. Many directors knew how to manage and operate a company. However, they did not understand the company's technology at all. Ran Fei was different. He was originally from a technical background. After starting the company, he spent a lot of time every day learning the latest technology. It was because he felt that only by understanding the development of the industry could the company move in the right direction. Otherwise, it would be easy to make the wrong decision when there was a disagreement within the company. After a while, Ran Fei connected the chip to his phone. Feng Jixiang, who was beside him, had already leaned his head over. Ran Fei turned on music, videos, and 3A games in a row. Without any hesitation, they all opened in an instant. Then he opened the evaluation software, and the points on it kept rising. 100,000. 1 million. 5 million. 10 million. 20 million. 30 million. 50 million. 100 million. At this point, the points slowly stopped. Ran Fei's eyes widened, and he was completely stunned. Feng Jixiang, who was beside him, saw that Ran Fei had not spoken and could not help but ask, How is it? What's the performance of this chip? Chairman Ran, say something. Feng Jixiang also knew Ran Fei. However, it was obvious that he did not know much about chips. Ran Fei said, It's very, very powerful. The latest generation of silicon-based chips used in mobile phones can run about 1 million. And this carbon-based chip has reached 100 million points. When he said this, Ran Fei's tone was filled with shock. 1 million, 100 million, Feng Jixiang said, a difference of 100 times. Good, ha ha ha, that's great, Feng Jixiang shouted excitedly. In fact, he was so excited that his entire body started to tremble, and tears could be seen at the corners of his eyes. He was loyal to Hua Nation and knew very well what kind of predicament Hua Nation's chips were facing. Now this predicament had been solved. Then Feng Jixiang said, Lin Fan, can I bring this chip and this photolithographic machine to Jingbei to study? Sure, Lin Fan said, however, I originally planned to work with Dahua Group on this. After all, he was working with Dahua Group on super batteries. After getting along with Ran Fei, he felt that he was a good person. In addition, Ran Fei contributed to Lin Fan obtaining the carbon-based photolithographic machine and its technology to a certain extent. Hence, Lin Fan decided to work with him again. Dahua Group is a very good technology company. It's a very good choice for you to work with them, said Feng Jixiang. In addition, I'll apply to the higher-ups for all the preferential conditions, including land, taxes, and so on. When Ran Fei heard this, he was so happy that he almost jumped up. Then Feng Jixiang took out his phone and made a call. Not long after, a large military green plane appeared in the sky and slowly landed in the courtyard of the coiling dragon villa. A huge gust of wind stirred up a cloud of dust. A few soldiers walked over quickly and stood on both sides of the plane like poles. Director Feng, what do you need to transport? One of the soldiers asked. That, try not to damage it. Feng Jixiang pointed at the carbon-based photolithographic machine and reminded him. Yes, sir, the soldier replied. Then, a few soldiers used a jack, a large manual forklift, ropes, and other tools to transport the carbon-based photolithographic machine to the plane. Lin Fan, Feng Jixiang said. Lin Fan did not wait for him to finish. He handed over the instruction manual and schematics that he had asked Lil White to prepare. I won't go over, you can just take this with you. After all, Lin Fan had just returned from Jingbei. He did not want to go over again. That would be too troublesome. Lin Fan hated trouble. Feng Jixiang flipped through it slightly and said excitedly, Thank you, Lin Fan. Lin Fan waved his hand, it's just a small matter. After the plane made a sound, the military green plane gradually disappeared into the distance. Then Lin Fan's gaze landed on Ran Fei. Chairman Ran, did you hear what I just said? Ran Fei naturally understood what Lin Fan meant and said, Our Dahua Group can take out 20% of the shares and give you the sole agency rights for carbon-based chips. At the same time, 50% of the profits from all carbon-based chips will belong to you. What do you think? He directly took out 20% of the shares. There was 50% of the profits from the carbon-based chips too. It had to be said that Ran Fei was very decisive. One had to know that Dahua Group was a technology giant with a market value of more than $1 trillion. In addition, because Dahua Group was not listed, even if others had money, they would not be able to obtain a large number of shares. Ran Fei himself only owned 20% of Dahua Group's shares. This was equivalent to Ran Fei directly taking out half of the shares in exchange for the general distribution rights of the carbon-based chips. Sure, Lin Fan said indifferently. His thoughts were very simple, he did not want to be bothered with anything. That would be too troublesome. Ran Fei's face lit up when he heard that. He believed that the future of carbon-based chips was absolutely vast. Correspondingly, the future of Dahua Group would also become more brilliant. Then Ran Fei made a phone call. In the afternoon, 2 men in suits and leather shoes arrived at Coiling Dragon Villa with a thick document. It was the contract that Ran Fei had asked someone to draft. Ran Fei spent 10 minutes reading the contract carefully from beginning to end. Then he handed it to Lin Fan and said, Mr. Lin, please take a look. 1 page, 2 pages. In just 10 seconds, Lin Fan had finished flipping through all the contents of the contract. He said, All right, let's do it this way. Ran Fei's lips twitched. Even though the last time he signed the contract with Lin Fan had only glanced at it casually. At that time, it only involved 1.5 billion yuan and 50% of the super battery's profits. This time, it involved 20% of Dahua Group's shares and 50% of the profits from the carbon-based chips. Was he not afraid that there would be a problem with the contract if he only read through it casually? Lin Fan did not care about Ran Fei's thoughts, after all. He had scanning abilities and professional law experience. With a single glance, he memorized the contents of the entire contract and could easily see if there were any traps in the terms. Then Lin Fan picked up the fountain pen and signed his name. He pushed the contract to Ran Fei and said, "I've signed it." Only then did Ran Fei react and say, all right." As he spoke, he also signed his name and stamped the official seal of Dahua Group. At this point, Dahua Group and Lin Fan had reached an official agreement on carbon-based chips. After Lin Fan and Ran Fei signed the contract, it was the weekend. Lin Fan lay at home for 2 days. Monday morning. As usual, Lin Fan looked at his phone out of habit. Notice from Merchant Bank, 7,596,000 yuan was deposited into your account. Then he turned his attention to the sign-in system. Sign in. Ding, congratulations, you've received 1 million yuan. Lin Fan did not care about that at all. After breakfast, he drove the Cullinan to Jiangbei University. After lying in bed for 2 days, he returned to the campus. He looked at the students walking and laughing, the students playing basketball on the field, and the students standing in the corner reading English aloud. Lin Fan also became energetic. At this moment, an extremely excited voice came from not far away. Lin Fan. Then, Professor Wang Jun and Professor Chen Heiyang from the Department of Computer Science walked over with the latest science journal. When they came in front of Lin Fan, they bowed and said respectfully, "Thank you, Lin Fan." This morning, when they saw the latest science journal, they were so shocked that they could not control themselves. This was because there was only one thesis title on the cover of this issue of Science. Rather, there was only one thesis in the entire journal. That was the principle and usage of carbon-based photolithographic machines. The first author of the thesis was Lin Fan. Their names were on the second author. This thank you was not just because Lin Fan had placed their names as the second author. The most important reason was that Lin Fan had invented the carbon-based photolithographic machine, allowing Hua Nation to finally take a solid step forward in the field of chips. This step was there, or rather, it was the step that all Hua Nation computer scientists hoped to take. Now it had finally become reality. Lin Fan waved his hand nonchalantly. "It's just a small matter." Small matter. That was right. In Lin Fan's eyes, it was just a small matter. After all, it only took him about an hour and a half to easily obtain the carbon-based photolithographic machine. Lin Fan did not chat with them and continued walking forward. Wang Jun and Chen Heiyang looked at Lin Fan's back as he walked away. While they praised him, their faces gradually revealed an unconcealable joy. This was because their names were written on the paper, the principle and usage of carbon-based photolithographic machines. Even if it was only as the second author, it was still a very impressive achievement. If the history of the internet appeared in books in the future, their names might also appear. When Lin Fan arrived at the classroom, the students were laughing and chatting as usual. They were extremely relaxed. At this moment, a series of brisk footsteps sounded from outside the corridor. Then Counselor Sun Yaedong walked in with a smile. He cleared his throat and said, "Everyone should know that chips have always been a headache for our country. Now I want to tell you a piece of good news. This headache no longer exists. Because Lin Fan from this class has invented a carbon-based photolithographic machine. It can easily produce carbon-based chips that are 100 times more powerful than today's high-end silicon-based chips." Let us give a warm round of applause to student Lin Fan. The entire classroom fell silent. Everyone was stunned. Even though they were not computer science majors, they also knew that the mainstream chips in the world today were all silicon-based chips. However, Lin Fan invented a carbon-based chip that was easily 100 times more powerful than silicon-based chips. How incredible was this? It was actually the work of their classmate. They were both in compulsory education, so why was he so outstanding? Sun Yaedong saw that none of the students had any reaction, so he called out again, "Everyone, please applaud and congratulate Lin Fan." As soon as he finished speaking, he took the lead and clapped. Then the entire classroom burst into thunderous applause. Everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Fan, their faces filled with admiration. In fact, it was not just the students who looked at Lin Fan with admiration. Counselor Sun Yaedong was the same. His face even had a touch of redness. After a long time, the applause slowly stopped. "The facts have proven that my judgment is very good," Sun Yedong said again. "Lin Fan, well done, you've brought glory to our class." Lin Fan's lips twitched. Was it not because he had solved Zhou's conjecture that he was accepted to study at Jiangbei University? How is it related to your judgment? Also, Counselor Sun, do you really only know how to praise people by saying bringing glory? After Sun Yedong said a few words, he did not stay in the classroom for long. After all, this was not his class. After Sun Yedong left, the classroom was filled with discussions. "Brother Lin Fan, aren't you too awesome? You actually invented a carbon-based photolithographic machine. Is that chip really so powerful? When can it be listed?" However, the students did not discuss it for long before the old professor slowly walked in. The old professor first used a pair of murky eyes that emitted a faint light to stay on Lin Fan for a few seconds before starting today's lecture. The old professor's course was not very attractive to many people. Now everyone was even less interested. Their thoughts were all on Lin Fan's carbon-based photolithographic machine. Some people quietly took out their phones and searched for relevant content on the internet. At this moment, Song Yi, who was secretly looking at his phone, suddenly shouted, "F***CK." It was because he saw a piece of news. Dahua Group used 20% of the shares to obtain the general distribution rights of the carbon-based chip invented by Lin Fan. At the same time, Lin Fan also had 50% of the profits from the carbon-based chip. Dahua Group was a giant company with a market value of more than 1 trillion yuan. 20% of the shares meant that Lin Fan had become a billionaire. What a terrifying number. How could Song Yi not scream? However, how would he know that Lin Fan's net worth was a few hundred billion? His voice was like a stone thrown into a lake, completely breaking the silence. Everyone, including the old professor, focused their attention on Song Yi. Song Yi also noticed this and felt so guilty that he wanted to bury his head under the table. Fortunately, the old professor did not make a fuss. He only glanced at Song Yi twice before continuing his lecture. In fact, it was not just this piece of news. The top search on Weibo was also about Lin Fan. Daily, congratulations to Lin Fan of Jiangbei University for developing a carbon-based photolithographic machine. Almost the instant this post appeared, countless comments poured in like snowflakes. Firmament, the fewer words the bigger the matter. Whirlpool, God, Lin Fan is awesome. Hee, did you smile? Lin Fan is awesome. Boom, boom, boom. Can you explain what a carbon-based photolithographic machine is? Deep Sea, let me explain. Photolocation machines were used to produce chips. Before today, they were all silicon-based photolithographic machines used to produce silicon-based chips. As the name suggests, carbon-based photolithographic machines are used to produce carbon-based chips. And the carbon-based chip that God Lin Fan invented is 100 times better than the highest-end silicon-based chip. As long as you're happy, F***CK, 100 times this is too awesome. Mr. Huang, wait, why do I feel that the name Lin Fan is a little familiar? Disheartened, familiar? You're right. If you search for Lin Fan of Jiangbei University on the internet, you'll find that he not only solved Zhou's conjecture, the twin prime number conjecture, Hale conjecture, Hodge conjecture, and other difficult mathematical problems. In addition, he invented the earthquake prediction device and the human islet recovery medicine. Yang Xiao Ajeng, on the internet I'm constantly reminded that I'm here to make up the numbers. Fate God Lin Fan is F***seeking awesome. Compared to the excitement in Hua Nation, the situation overseas was bleak. Koren, a carbon-based chip, such a thing was actually invented. Jerry, more importantly, the person who invented it is actually a young man from Hua Nation. Alexander, a young man from Hua Nation, no, this must be fake news. JJ, false news. Are you saying that science published a fake paper for Hua Nation? Or could it be that John Durai, Mollinston, Arnold, Abel and the others, the top names in the field of computers and chips, are all faking it for Lin Fan? If this is the case, then it'll be even scarier than Hua Nation manufacturing carbon-based chips. Urba, is it that difficult to admit that others are strong? Mr. Lin Fan has solved many math problems, invented the earthquake prediction device, and even the human islet recovery medicine. He's known as the existence with the strongest brain on Earth. Eh? Regarding these, Lin Fan did not care at all. Other than the students who gathered around to give him a thumbs up and praise him after class, he was still eating and sleeping as usual. In the blink of an eye, the day's classes were over. At the request of Song Yi, Zheng Jinbao, and the other students, Lin Fan brought them to AC Clubhouse. They ate top-grade abalone and sea cucumbers. They drank XO and Romane Conti. They enjoyed godlike massages. All the students felt extremely comfortable. This time, perhaps due to the short period of time, he only spent a total of 680,000 yuan. At the same time, 68 red packets appeared in Lin Fan's phone. It was already 9:30 p.m. when they left AC Clubhouse. Lin Fan drove the Cullinan and listened to the pleasant song from the Eaton speaker as he sped toward the Coiling Dragon Villa. Lin Fan had just arrived at the Coiling Dragon Villa when the phone in his pocket rang. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was his sister, Lin Xiaoyao. Hence he pressed the answer button. "Brother, are you the one who invented the carbon-based photolithographic machine?" As soon as the call connected, Lin Xiaoyao's voice sounded. Lin Fan rubbed his ears and said, "It's me." Then, Dahua Group used 20% of their shares to obtain the sole agency rights for your carbon-based chips. "Oh right, there's also a 50% profit?" Lin Xiaoyao asked again. "Yes," Lin Fan said casually. "F***CK, awesome," Lin Xiaoyao shouted, "Brother, I love you." Lin Fan almost choked on his own saliva. He reminded her Lil Yao were siblings. After the carbon-based chip appeared, there was a lot of discussion on the internet. All the major cell phone companies held meetings. In the past, they only had silicon-based chips and had no choice. Now carbon-based chips with higher performance had appeared. They had a choice now. However, the cell phone companies did not immediately say anything. After all, carbon-based chips had just appeared, and they did not know what the future held. If they offended the foreign chip alliance because of this, it would definitely be a terrible disaster. Of course, there were also companies that were not afraid. For example, Demi Group. The CEO of Demi Group, Labes, posted on Weibo immediately. "Labes, congratulations to Lin Fan of Jiangbei University for developing the carbon-based photolithographic machine and realizing Hua Nation's chip. Our Demi Group cell phones will all use Hua Nation's chips in the future." The appearance of this Weibo post once again caused a heated discussion. One had to know. Demi cell phones were the top 5 cell phones in the world. Even if the carbon-based chip no longer accepted other orders, it still had an extremely broad future. Labe's words were like dropping another bomb on the already turbulent mobile phone market. Many people began to wonder why Labes had made such a decision so quickly. They did not know that Lin Fan owned 51% of Demi Group shares and was the real boss. How could a worker like Labes not support the chip invented by his boss? Regarding these, Lin Fan did not care. The next day the sky was clear. He drove the Cullinan on a straight road. He did not know what had happened in front of him, but the entire road was very congested. Lin Fan looked at the densely packed cars and could not help but think of the students who had surrounded him yesterday, chattering and praising him. For some reason, Lin Fan suddenly thought of Su Ningjing. He thought of the empty scene in the mountain village and Su Ningjing's gentle appearance. Hence, Lin Fan took out his phone and sent a message to Sun Yaodong, asking for leave. Then he turned the steering wheel and drove toward Washington Palace. After Lin Fan brought Su Ningjing and her family out of the village, he arranged for them to stay in Washington Palace. This was because Washington Palace had a good environment, was surrounded by parks, and had plenty of businesses. At the same time, it was the best school district in Jiangbei, which was convenient for Mei to go to school. Not long after, Lin Fan parked the car steadily at Washington Palace. When Lin Fan took the elevator and went upstairs, he realized that the door was half open. Hence Lin Fan walked in slowly. At this moment the old lady walked out. Lin Fan said, "Greetings, Granny." The old lady smiled kindly. "Ah Jiang just went out to feed the stray dogs in the alley, she'll be back soon." Lin Fan nodded and said, "Ningjing seems to like dogs a lot." The old woman thought for a moment and said, "It should stem from her love for the house and everything about it." Then she pointed at the big yellow dog beside her and said, "Big Yellow was left behind by Ah Jiang's parents before they passed away. Ah Jiang has always treated it as her own family. Big Yellow is also very good. Once, when Ah Jiang fainted in the field due to heat stroke, it was Big Yellow who called me over to bring Ah Jiang back." When the old lady said this, her wrinkled old face was full of sighs. The way Lin Fan looked at the yellow dog had changed as well. "I almost forgot that there are still egg noodles in the pot." After the old lady finished speaking, she was about to walk toward the kitchen. "Granny, I'll help you scoop it." He walked into the kitchen first and asked, "Granny, which bowl should I use?" "The silver iron bowl on the counter." Lin Fan was stunned. There was indeed a silver bowl on the counter. However, to Lin Fan, this was not a metal bowl at all. It was a silver metal basin. Granny wanted to eat so much. Lin Fan was a little confused, but he still scooped the egg noodles in. It had to be said that the size of this silver basin was just nice. It just happened to fit all the egg noodles in the pot. Then Lin Fan brought the egg noodles to the dining table. "You put it in the wrong place." Lin Fan did not understand. "This bowl of noodles is for Big Yellow. Today is Big Yellow's birthday, so I made a bowl of longevity noodles for it." Lin Fan finally had a look of realization. No wonder she used such a big iron bowl for the noodles. Lin Fan had just placed the noodles in front of Big Yellow when it went up and started to eat the noodles in big mouthfuls. It was very satisfied. At this moment, footsteps sounded from outside. Lin Fan, Su Ningjing, was pleasantly surprised and called out to the man. At the same time, her beautiful eyes seemed to be shining with starlight, extremely brilliant. Lin Fan looked at how happy she was, and his mood lightened up. Su Ningjing took 2 steps forward and said, "Lin Fan, when did you come?" "I just arrived," Lin Fan said. Then the two of them talked about some ordinary things. For example, whether he had eaten breakfast, whether there was a traffic jam on the road, whether she was used to life here, and so on. However, the two of them seemed to be talking about very interesting topics. There were sweet smiles on their faces. At this moment, Lin Fan said, "It's been a long time since we went shopping. Let's go out for a walk." Su Ningjing did not hesitate at all. She nodded and said, "All right." Then she waved her hand at Big Yellow and said, "Big Yellow, happy birthday." Lin Fan and Su Ningjing walked downstairs together. When they passed by an alley, several dogs wagged their tails and rubbed against Su Ningjing's feet intimately. Su Ningjing bent down and stroked the dogs' heads. "Everyone, be good, I'll come over later, hurry up and go back." Obviously, these were the stray dogs she fed. Lin Fan looked at these dogs and thought of Big Yellow upstairs. His heart skipped a beat and he took out his phone to send a message. Lin Fan did not take Su Ningjing to the mall today. Instead, they walked on a narrow sidewalk, visited a quiet park, and went to a clear lake holding hands. They strolled forward and spoke the words of love in their hearts. Unknowingly, the sun slowly set. At this moment, it was as if a large patch of bright red flowers had bloomed in the distant sky. It was extremely gorgeous. The two of them leaned against each other, and time seemed to have stopped. At this moment, a breeze blew from afar. "Ningjing, let's go, I'll bring you to a place." In Su Ningjing's heart, as long as she was with Lin Fan, she was willing to go anywhere. She nodded gently and said, "All right." The Imperial Hotel. General Manager Wang Fengyi spent most of his time in the office dealing with matters. Today, he had been standing in the hall for the entire afternoon. As the sky gradually darkened, a series of crisp footsteps sounded outside. Then, a tall and handsome man holding the arm of a graceful woman slowly walked over. It was Lin Fan and Su Ningjing. When Wang Fengyi saw the two of them, he quickly came up and said respectfully, "Hello, Mr. Lin and Ms. Su." Lin Fan nodded, "Bring us there." "Yes, this way please," Wang Fengyi said. After a while, Lin Fan and Su Ningjing arrived at the luxurious banquet hall on the 78th floor. As soon as the door of the banquet hall was pushed open, loud and noisy barks sounded from inside. Su Ningjing took a closer look and found that Big Yellow and the stray dogs in the alley were all inside. Not only that, but there were also many photos of dogs hanging on the walls of the banquet hall. In the middle of the banquet hall, there was a huge photo of Big Yellow with a birthday cake. When the large group of dogs saw that Su Ningjing was here, they all wagged their tails and ran over, constantly rubbing against Su Ningjing's feet. At this moment, 2 rows of men in small suits slowly walked in with small bags. As they walked, they played the birthday song. At the same time, a waiter pushed a large cake made of M9 beef and followed behind them. Lin Fan placed 2 golden candles on the M9 beef and lit them with a lighter. This was all for Big Yellow's birthday. If an outsider saw this, who knew what kind of expression they would have? One had to know. Such a large piece of M9 beef would cost tens of thousands of yuan, and a pure gold candle would cost thousands of yuan. To book a luxurious banquet hall would require more than 50,000 yuan. In other words, the total cost of celebrating this dog's birthday was close to 100,000 yuan. Most people would not spend that much money on their birthdays. Even people were inferior to dogs now. Big Yellow doesn't know how to blow out candles. Ningjing, you can help it, Lin Fan said. Su Ningjing also understood that Lin Fan had specially made these arrangements for Big Yellow's birthday. In Su Ningjing's heart, Big Yellow was her family. Lin Fan did all this clearly because he also treated Big Yellow as a family member. Su Ningjing could not help but feel touched. She nodded and said, "All right." After blowing out the candles, Big Yellow and a large group of stray dogs divided the M9 beef cake into portions and ate it heartily. They were very satisfied. Su Ningjing was very happy to see the dogs eating so happily. She snuggled into Lin Fan's embrace, feeling extremely blissful. The birthday party lasted until 9 p.m. before finally coming to an end. Su Ningjing and Lin Fan looked at Big Yellow and the stray dogs. After they were picked up by professional breeders, they left the Imperial Hotel with Lin Fan. The two of them arrived at a place not far from Washington Palace. They were in a courtyard of an old bungalow that occupied an area of nearly 2,000 square meters. "Let's go inside and take a look." As Lin Fan spoke, he pushed open the door of the courtyard. A group of stray dogs ran over excitedly, wagging their tails and rubbing Su Ningjing's legs. Su Ningjing could not help but be a little stunned. She asked, Why are you guys here?" Lin Fan said that alley is a little small. It can't house too many stray dogs. In the future you can place the stray dogs you adopt here." When Su Ningjing heard this, her heart trembled slightly. She understood now. In order to allow her to raise more dogs, Lin Fan bought this mansion. At this moment, Su Ningjing's entire heart seemed to have completely melted. "Lin Fan!" She called out softly, ignoring the fact that the door to the courtyard was not closed yet. She also ignored the many dogs around her. She tiptoed lightly and moved closer to Lin Fan's face. "Oh Epsilon! 3 Epsilon!" They were warm and moist. A few minutes later, Su Ningjing's heels slowly landed on the ground. Suddenly, a crisp notification rang out in Lin Fan's mind. "Ding, you've completed the hidden mission Protect Animals. You've acquired the skill Animal Communication." What was this? Lin Fan was a little confused and focused his attention on animal communication. Animal communication, able to understand the language of animals and have the ability to communicate with them. Seeing this, Lin Fan's eyes twitched. Communicating with animals seemed to be an interesting ability. At this moment, a slightly dull voice sounded in his ear. "The food today was really delicious." Lin Fan looked in the direction of the voice and saw a dog that had some spots on his body groaning. Obviously, it was the one speaking. "Yeah, I've never eaten such delicious food before," a black dog said. "In the past, I didn't have enough to eat every day and I was often beaten up by others. Ever since I met the mistress, I've never been hungry again. Today, I even ate such delicious food. In the future, I must protect my mistress well," the white dog said. "Yes, that's right. We have to protect the mistress well." The white dog's words received the unanimous approval of all the dogs. "Do you think the man next to the mistress is our master?" the black dog asked. "The delicious food today seemed to have been prepared by him. He should be our master. Since he's our master, we have to protect him in the future too." "Yes, yes, yes," the dog said. Hence, other than rubbing against Su Ningjing's feet, the dogs also rubbed against Lin Fan's feet. When Lin Fan heard this, he could not help but smile. These dogs knew how to repay kindness, not bad. The black dog rubbed against Lin Fan's feet and slowly raised its head. Then he said with a hesitant tone, "I don't know why, but it feels like the master seems to understand me." The spotted dog at the side could not help but ask, "Understand you?" "That's impossible, right?" the white dog said. Then all the dogs raised their heads. "I think I also have the same feeling." "Me too." At this moment the black dog said, "Say, is the master also a dog?" The dogs fell into deep thought. When Lin Fan heard this, his lips twitched. These dogs were really too much. At this moment, a gust of cold wind blew in from outside the courtyard. The huge difference in temperature between day and night made Su Ningjing shiver. Lin Fan noticed this as well. He pulled Su Ningjing into his embrace and said softly, "It's getting late. I'll send you back to rest first." Su Ningjing nodded and replied softly. Then she waved at the stray dogs. Only then did she walk out with Lin Fan. 396 Obtaining a school, borrowing money. Jiangbei University, the female dormitory. Zhao Nai and Liu Yunzhu walked in while chatting. After dinner, Xia Bing and Xia Zhu were reading. At this moment they were still reading. Liu Yunzhu could not help but sigh. When she noticed the contents of Xia Bing and Xia Zhu's books, Zhao Nai said, "They're finally reading computer books again. I've always said that since you're computer geniuses, you should focus on computer science." Xia Bing and Xia Zhu nodded noncommittally. After Zhao Nai and Liu Yunzhu left, Xia Bing and Xia Zhu slowly raised their heads and looked at the science magazine next to them. The Principle and Usage of Carbon-Based Photolithographic Machines. Lin Fan was the first author. Xia Bing and Xia Zhu's beautiful eyes showed a little intoxication at first. Then they became more determined and started reading computer books more seriously. In the next few days, Lin Fan maintained his lifestyle of eating, going to school, and sleeping. He was extremely relaxed and satisfied. In the blink of an eye, it was the weekend. A ray of sunlight shone through the curtains and onto the balcony. Lin Fan, who was still asleep, heard the sound of chattering. "Fortunately, I woke up early and caught another worm today." "I caught two." "Are you that lucky today?" "That's right, I even found a fruit." Lin Fan slowly opened his eyes and looked at the curtains that were blown by the wind and the little sparrows on the treetops. Only then did he understand that these voices belonged to the little sparrow. He could not help but reveal a different kind of smile on his face. In the first few days, Lin Fan listened to the conversations of the animals and felt that it was very strange. Now he was gradually used to it. Out of habit, he picked up his phone and a text message appeared on the screen. "Notice from Merchant Bank, 7,893,600 yuan was deposited into your account." Then Lin Fan turned his attention to the sign-in system. "Sign in." "Ding, congratulations, you've obtained Edinburgh International School." If the school next to Washington Palace was the best public primary and secondary school in Jiangbei, then Edinburgh International School was the most luxurious private school in Jiangbei. Located in the heart of Jiangbei City, Edinburgh International School covered an area of 1 million square meters. It was a towering castle-like school built by the famous designer Justin over 5 years and cost 2 billion yuan. This place not only did they teach the students language, math, and other cultural knowledge, but they also taught them piano, violin, football, basketball, golf, horse riding, archery, etiquette, sociology, and foreign languages. This would allow the students to develop in an all-rounded way. If the ordinary primary and secondary schools in Jiangbei could send the students to famous universities in the country, then Edinburgh International School would be able to send their students to famous international universities. The tuition fee for Edinburgh International School was 500,000 yuan per year. Even so, there were still many parents scrambling to enroll their children. However, even if these parents were willing to pay, their children could not enter as they wished. This was because both parents and children had to pass a strict written test and interview before they could obtain the qualifications to enter the school. Lin Fan rubbed his chin and said, "Edinburgh International School, a school, what's the use of this? Forget it, it's better than 10 million yuan." At this moment his phone rang. Lin Fan saw that it was an unfamiliar number and immediately pressed the answer button. "This is the loan company, I'm Manager Han. Do you have any financial needs? The operation is very simple, you can get the money in 3 days." A dull voice came from the phone. Initially, Lin Fan thought that it was a call from the headmaster or some manager of the school. He did not expect it to be a call to promote loans. "Really?" he asked casually, "how much can I borrow?" The voice on the other end of the phone was noticeably raised. "After you provide your ID card, you can borrow up to 500,000 yuan. Similarly, the loan can be released within 3 days." Lin Fan pursed his lips and said, 500,000, that's too little. Too little. That was right. One had to know. Lin Fan's daily income from breathing, sleeping, and walking alone was more than 7 million. 500,000, he could earn it by breathing for an hour or two, right? Additionally, the loan company would only give out the money after 3 days. The voice on the other end of the phone did not sound depressed. On the contrary, the person became even more excited. If the customer thought that the money was too little, it meant that the other party really lacked money. "If you have a house and a car, you can provide us with the relevant documents and you can borrow up to 5 million yuan. Lin Fan said, "I have to provide so many things but can only borrow 5 million. Just the Coiling Dragon villa that Lin Fan lived in was worth more than 5 million alone. Manager Han hurriedly said, 5 million is just an estimate. We give out loans based on the actual price of the property and the vehicle. Don't worry, our loan amount will definitely be higher and faster than any bank. We're a professional loan company with great strength." Manager Han then asked after a pause, "Where's your house? How big is the area? I can give you a loan amount right now." Lin Fan said, "Really? I have 132 houses in Washington Palace. I seem to have more than 1,000 houses in Zhenhu Yuding and 10 villas in the Coiling Dragon Villa complex. By the way, are office buildings considered real estate? Kaiyankun Building, Beijia Building, Global Financial Building, Zhanghua Building, Jiai Building are all mine. Do the math first." Beep beep beep. However, Lin Fan only received a busy tone. In a dark office building, Manager Han spat softly. 10 units in the Coiling Dragon Villa complex? Why don't you just say that the entire Coiling Dragon Villa complex is yours? 132 houses in Washington Palace, Kaiyankun Building, Global Financial Building. Pa, you don't even know your limits when bragging. It was no wonder that Han Bio would think so. Each Coiling Dragon Villa was worth several 100 million yuan. The price of each unit in Washington Palace was a few million yuan. As for Kaiyankun Building and the Global Financial Building, those were buildings worth tens of billions. These, all of them, belonged to the same person. Was that not a big joke? Lin Fan looked at his phone and muttered, "Am I being treated as a liar? In this day and age, why don't people believe you when you tell the truth?" Lin Fan recalled the last name of the salesman, Manager Han. He could not help but think of Han Tian, who also had the surname of Han. Lin Fan muttered to himself, "I haven't seen her for a while. I have nothing to do today. I should go look for her." After saying that, Lin Fan quickly washed up and walked out. He opened the door to the Cullinan, stepped on the accelerator and sped into the distance. 397 Worry, I will solve it. As it was the weekend, the road was very smooth. Not long after, Lin Fan arrived at Lianjia Real Estate. At this moment, Han Tian was looking at something on the computer, very focused. Lin Fan did not bother her and just looked at her quietly. As usual, Han Tian wore a black suit when she worked. As her figure was too good, she could only barely button the third button of her shirt. Even though she was sitting, there was no sign of fat on her abdomen. It was extremely smooth. Her figure was vase-shaped. At this moment Han Tian slowly raised her head. The next moment her beautiful eyes lit up as she said excitedly, "Lin Fan, when did you arrive?" Han Tian's voice was full of magnetism. It was very pleasant to hear. Lin Fan said, "I've only just arrived." Then he slowly stepped forward and held Han Tian's slender waist. "What are you busy with?" "I'm looking at the rental and sales situation of the houses in the area," Han Tian said. "Am I disturbing you?" Lin Fan asked. "How could that be? Actually, I've already memorized the data. It's just a habit of mine to check it every day to see if there are any changes," Han Tian said. Ta-ta-ta. At this moment footsteps sounded from outside. A man in a suit slowly walked in with a bunch of keys and a document. When he saw Lin Fan hugging Han Tian, he was stunned. However, he still said, "Hello, Manager Han, Mr. Lin." His name was Wang Qi, and he was an ordinary employee of Lianjia. Even though Lin Fan had only been to Lianjia twice, his appearance shocked everyone there both times. The first time, Lin Fan brought the keys and the property ownership certificates to Washington Palace. The second time, Lin Fan brought the property ownership certificates and keys to the entire Zhenhu Yuding estate. Both times Wang Qi was there and had a deep impression of Lin Fan. Recently, some colleagues said that Han Tian and Lin Fan were together. However, there were also many people who said that this was just a rumor. Now it was confirmed. Hearing Wang Qi's greeting, Han Tian blushed and nodded. After all, she had always acted like a strong woman in the office. Now she was snuggling in Lin Fan's arms like a little girl. She was really not used to it. Lin Fan was very relaxed and said, "You're called Wang Qi, right?" "Yes," Wang Qi hurriedly said. "How's business recently?" Lin Fan asked. "Thanks to you, business has been good recently." Wang Qi was definitely not complimenting him. Lin Fan had given them the entire Washington Palace and Zhenhu Yuding estate to rent. One had to know. Washington Palace was the best school district in Jiangbei, so they did not have to worry about renting the units out. Zhenhu Yuding was a residential area in the city center. There were many high-end office buildings around, so the units there were easy to rent out too. Every month, Wang Qi received a considerable amount of income. Lin Fan chatted for a while more before heading out with Han Tian. They walked on the quiet path and looked at the green grass, feeling very comfortable. At this moment, Lin Fan asked, "You seem to be troubled. Did he run into some trouble at work?" When Lin Fan walked into Lianjia, he could easily tell that Han Tian seemed a little unhappy. It was only when she saw him that a smile appeared on her face. Han Tian's heart warmed when she saw how concerned Lin Fan was about her. However, she thought of something inside. "It's not about work. It's my dad. My dad is a teacher at a private primary school. A while ago, there was a boy who bullied a girl. My father went up to stop him and reprimanded the boy. Who knew that the boy's father is a member of the school board? Not long after, my father was fired by the school. My dad really likes being a teacher, but he's already 50 years old now. In addition, he offended the board of directors, so no school is willing to accept him. During this period of time, Dad has been going for interviews everywhere, but he's ruthlessly rejected each time. I feel a little uncomfortable about the situation. I told him to give up on being a teacher and retire early, but he's unwilling." It was no wonder that Han Tian was upset. If her father were just a young man, it would not be a big deal if he was rejected. However, the problem was that he was already so old. If he continued to be rejected, his heart would definitely suffer incomparable pain. Lin Fan patted Han Tian's shoulder lightly and said, "Don't worry, leave this matter to me." Han Zhengzhang, who had slightly grayed sideburns, was wearing a white shirt and carrying a briefcase as he slowly walked out of a primary school. The moment he stepped out of the school gate, his entire body trembled slightly. He failed. He failed yet another interview. Just as Han Tian had said, Han Zhengzhang was suffering from repeated failures. Could it be that I really can't do it? Filled with self-denial, he walked slowly on the street like a walking corpse. At this moment the phone in his pocket rang. After a while Han Zhengzhang slowly picked up the call. "Hello, is this Mr. Han Zhengzhang?" A very respectful voice came from the phone. Yes, it's me, and you are, Han Zhengzheng asked. Hello, Mr. Han, I'm Kai Ziaojan, the manager of the Human Resources Department at Edinburgh International School. We've received your resume. We sincerely invite you to come to Edinburgh International School for an interview. Do you have the time? Han Zhengzheng was stunned. Edinburgh International School. Was this not the most luxurious school in Jiangbei? The tuition fee for each student was 500,000 yuan. The treatment of teachers was several times better than outside. An interview. Did he submit his resume to this school? Even so, Han Zhengzheng still said, I have time, can I go over now? As long as a school invited him for an interview, he would give it a try. After all, there was no chance without an interview. Even if it was not even a 1 in a 10,000 chance, he would still do it. In addition, Han Zhengzheng had long wanted to visit the campus. However, the school was always closed off and ordinary people could not enter. Now there was a chance. Of course, may I ask where you are? Kai Ziaojan said. I'll get someone to drive over and pick you up now. No need, no need, Han Zhengzheng hurriedly said. I know the place, I can just take a taxi there. Kai Ziaojan hesitated for a moment before saying, Okay, we're looking forward to your arrival. 398 interviews, successful. Han Zhengzheng stood by the roadside and called a taxi. Not long after, a tall and majestic building that looked like a huge castle appeared in front of him. It was Edinburgh International School. In the past, Han Zhengzheng had seen this school from afar. However, he had mostly just taken glimpses. Now Han Zhengzheng could stop to take a closer look and was inexplicably shocked. As expected of the most luxurious school in Jiangbei. A tall security guard saw Han Zhengzheng standing at the door and could not help but walk over. Hello, what's the matter? There was a hint of vigilance in his tone. One had to know. There were often perverts who wanted to take revenge on society. The students at Edinburgh International School were all rich and powerful. The security guards would never allow such unfortunate cases to happen. As for the possibility that Han Zhengzheng was picking up a child from school, the idea did not even cross the security guard's mind. Even the nanny would drive a luxury car over to pick up the children. Han Zhengzheng had just arrived in a taxi. Han Zhengzheng only reacted after hearing the security guard's words. I'm here for an interview. An interview. The security guard's expression became even more vigilant. Han Zhengzheng was simply too old. At this school, even the people who swept the trash were all young people in their 20s or 30s. When questioned by the security guard, Han Zhengzheng had a guilty conscience. What if the previous call was a scam? However, he had already come here. He could not just leave without doing anything right. It was the HR manager Kai Ziaojan who called me for an interview, Han Zhengzheng said. By the way, my name is Han Zhengzheng. At this moment, the head of security, who was not far away, walked over quickly. Hello, Mr. Han. Manager Kai is waiting for you in conference room 501 of Teaching Building 2. Han Zhengzheng heaved a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, the phone call just now was not a scam. He had indeed received an interview invitation from Edinburgh International School. All right, Han Zhengzheng said after a while. Han Zhengzheng looked at the school from the outside and felt that it was very tall and magnificent. Walking in, he saw the green grass, the brand new rubber track, and the exquisite statue. It gave him the illusion that he was in Century Park. A moment later, Han Zhengzheng arrived at Teaching Building 2 and took the luxury elevator. He did not feel any sense of weightlessness, and with a ding, he arrived at the 5th floor. Han Zhengzheng adjusted his clothes and knocked on the door of conference room 501. Please come in. At this moment, 3 people were sitting in the meeting room. Hello, I'm Han Zhengzheng. When the 3 of them heard this, fawning expressions flashed across their faces. Hello, Mr. Han, a round-faced man said. I'm Kai Ziaojan who called you just now. Hello, Manager Kai, Han Zhengzheng said. Mr. Han, can you introduce yourself? Kai Ziaojan nodded. All right. Therefore, Han Zhengzheng briefly explained his work experience. All right, Kai Ziaojan said with a smile. From your resume, you have more than 20 years of teaching experience. In addition, you've been a form teacher for several years. It can be said that you have a wealth of experience in teaching and management. We at Edinburgh International School lack teachers like you. On behalf of Edinburgh International School, I welcome you. Han Zhengzhong was stunned. What did Kai Xiaojun mean? He wanted to hire him. However, he had only briefly introduced himself. This was very good. Han Zhengzhong said after a while, actually, I lost my last job because I criticized a boy who bullied a girl. The boy's father happens to be a member of the school board, so I was fired. Kai Xiaojun smiled. You're not afraid of power and treat everyone equally. This is a very outstanding quality. I might retire after a few years, Han Zhengzhong added. I just said that this means that you have rich teaching and management experience. Even if you retire after a few years, you're still a very rare talent, Kai Xiaojun said. Seeing that Han Zhengzhong was about to say something, Kai Xiaojun said, also, I noticed that when you walked into our conference room, you took the first step with your right leg. Your right leg is the leg of hope. This means that you will bring endless hope to our Edinburgh International School. Han Zhengzhong lowered his head. Was it an advantage to step in using the right leg first? Kai Xiaojun did not care much and continued, I think you're very suitable for the position of the Dean of Education at our Edinburgh International School. Your monthly salary will be 100,000 yuan and you'll get a high bonus at the end of the year. You'll also receive reimbursement for parking fees, gas fees, meals, and other benefits. What do you think? Han Zhengzhong was stunned. A monthly salary of 100,000 yuan and a high year-end bonus. All expenses would also be covered. It was said that the salary of a teacher at Edinburgh International School was several times that of a teacher at other schools. How many times? It was more than 10 times. Han Zhengzhong's previous salary was only 7,000 to 8,000, and he did not get any benefits. Seeing that Han Zhengzhong did not respond, Kai Xiaojun could not help but say, of course, if you're not satisfied, we can continue to discuss. We, Edinburgh International School, are really looking forward to having you join us. Han Zhengzhong finally reacted and said, no, I'm very satisfied. Kai Xiaojun heaved a sigh of relief. That's great, welcome to Edinburgh International School. As he spoke, he took the initiative to extend his right hand. Han Zhengzhong extended his trembling right hand and shook it gently. Lin Fan and Han Tian were strolling in a quiet park. At this moment, the phone in Lin Fan's pocket rang with a crisp notification. Lin Fan waved his phone and said, your father's job has been confirmed, he has been interviewed and signed the contract. He was hired according to the procedures. When Han Tian heard this, her beautiful eyes glistened with tears. Lin Fan's actions gave her father a chance to work. Secondly, he had also given face to her father. This was simply too considerate of him. Lin Fan, you're so good to me, Han Tian said gently. Then she could not help but snuggle into Lin Fan's arms. Her entire body seemed to be turning into water, completely melting into Lin Fan's body. Lin Fan smiled, you're my girlfriend. Han Tian felt as if she had eaten honey. Time in school seemed to flow by like water every day. In the blink of an eye, a few days had passed. On this day, Lin Fan woke up. He had just eaten a crab burger, an M5 steak, and a glass of orange juice. At this moment, the phone on the table rang. He glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was Ling Ru. Lin Fan did not hesitate at all and answered the call. Good morning. As soon as the call connected, Ling Ru's pleasant voice came from the other end. Hearing this voice, Lin Fan could not help but think of the scene of her standing on the stage and singing like a fairy. At the thought of this, Lin Fan could not help but smile. Good morning, Lin Fan smiled. Then the two of them chatted on the phone and sometimes they talked about love. They were very relaxed. A moment later. Lin Fan, are you free these few days? Ling Ru asked. I've been nominated for the Hong Kong Golden Melody Award and the Best Newcomer Award. I might have to go to Hong Kong in the afternoon. I didn't expect you to win an award so soon. Even if I don't have time, I have to squeeze some time out to witness the moment you win an award, Lin Fan said. When Ling Ru heard this, her pretty face was full of smiles. However, she still said, "It's just a nomination, it doesn't mean I'll win." "You sing so well that the judges will definitely give you the award," Lin Fan said. At first, Ling Ru did not have much confidence. However, when she heard Lin Fan's words, for some reason she was filled with confidence. She nodded her head and said, "All right." In the afternoon, Lin Fan drove the Cullinan straight to the airport. At this moment, a woman wearing a round mask and sunglasses was standing in the distance. Even though she was wrapped up tightly just from her snow-white skin and perfect figure, it was not difficult to see that she was definitely an extremely beautiful woman. It was Ling Ru. After all, Ling Ru was a popular singer. If she was recognized, it would be very troublesome. Especially in Jiangbei, the probability of being recognized was the highest. It was because Ling Ru started to become famous in Jiangbei. There were the most fans here. However, Lin Fan still recognized her at a glance. He walked forward and gently hugged her slender waist. Ling Ru hugged Lin Fan and said happily, "Lin Fan, you're here." Usually, managers did not want their female artistes to have too much intimate contact with men, especially in a public place. If the scene was photographed by others, it would greatly affect her popularity. Li Fei, who was standing at the side, did not seem to see the two of them hugging. It was because the person who was hugging Ling Ru was Lin Fan. He was the real boss of Xin Mei Entertainment. Lin Fan's heart ached. "It's too uncomfortable for you to wear these, let's get on the plane first." She still had to dress like this in the plane, right? After all, if too many people noticed her on the plane, it would easily cause some unnecessary trouble. Although Ling Ru thought so, she still nodded vigorously and said, "Okay." Originally, Ling Ru and Li Fei had already booked the plane tickets. However, Lin Fan had them refund the tickets. He said that he would make the arrangements himself. Ling Ru and Li Fei were somewhat puzzled. One had to know. They had booked first-class tickets. Would Lin Fan not arrange first-class tickets as well? However, they would follow Lin Fan's decision unconditionally, especially Ling Ru. Therefore, they did as they were told. Then, Lin Fan and Ling Ru held hands as they walked toward the counter for Zia Airlines. Several beautiful and exquisite stewardesses came forward to welcome them when they saw them from afar. Among them, the beautiful air stewardess who was walking at the front said in the sweetest tone, "Hello, Mr. Lin." Seeing this, Ling Ru did not have any reaction. That was because all her attention was on Lin Fan. On the other hand, Li Fei's face revealed a trace of surprise. She had taken many flights before, but she had never had a group of air stewardesses waiting for her in advance. Lin Fan did not care about Li Fei's thoughts. He nodded his head and said, "Take us to the plane." "Okay, this way," the beautiful air stewardess said. Not long after, Lin Fan, Ling Ru, and Li Fei arrived at the location. They got on the Mercedes-Benz minibus that had been waiting for them for a long time. Then, two rows of beautiful air stewardesses and a luxurious passenger plane appeared in front of them. When Lin Fan and the others got off the minibus, the two rows of beautiful air stewardesses bowed and said respectfully, "Welcome, Mr. Lin, we will serve you wholeheartedly." Not long ago, when he went to Eagle Country, Lin Fan had already seen such a scene. Therefore, he did not pay too much attention to it. In Ling Ru's heart, as long as something happened to Lin Fan, no matter what it was, she did not need to be surprised. Therefore, she did not have any reaction. Li Fei, who was by the side, was slightly stunned. Since when did the flight attendants provide such a welcoming ceremony? Lin Fan held Ling Ru's hand and said, "Let's get on." Ling Ru felt the warmth on her hand and felt even happier. She nodded and said, "Yes, yes." Li Fei followed closely behind. When they sat down, they saw that the entire plane was empty. There was not a single passenger. "Ling Ru, you can take off your hat, sunglasses, and mask." Ling Ru did as she was told and took them all off. At this moment, a stewardess walked over and asked softly, "Mr. Lin, can we take off now?" "Sure," Lin Fan said. "All right," the air stewardess responded and slowly walked toward the cockpit. Rumbled. Not long after, the entire plane made a loud noise and accelerated on the ground. Finally, it charged into the air. Soon, they reached the top of the dense clouds and sailed forward like a small boat in the sky. Then, a group of air stewardesses pushed a cart with sea cucumbers, bird's nest, top-grade beef, Australian pork, caviar, romani conti, and other luxurious delicacies and drinks. Lin Fan first tasted the sea urchin egg and nodded. "This is not bad, Ling Ru, try it." Ling Ru took a bite and the food melted in her mouth. It was indeed very delicious and her beautiful face was filled with enjoyment. Li Fei, who was at the side, looked at the luxurious delicacies, fine wine, and the empty plane in front of her. She also looked at the air stewardesses who provided the best service to the three of them. She could not help but sigh. "So this is what it's like to have a chartered flight." Lin Fan smiled. "I'm afraid you won't be able to enjoy these things on a chartered plane. This is a private plane because I'm the largest shareholder of Zia Airlines." Li Fei was stunned on the spot. One had to know. Zia Airlines was the largest private airline company. It had nearly 1,000 planes. And its total market value was close to 100 billion. The largest shareholder probably owned tens of billions, right? In addition, Lin Fan was also the boss of Xin Mei Entertainment. Xin Mei Entertainment's market value was 20 billion. Lin Fan, how much money did he have? How could Li Fei know that this was just a small amount of Lin Fan's assets? Compared to Li Fei's shock and dumbfoundedness, Ling Ru was much calmer. It was because she would never forget the time when Lin Fan had used Little Tanuki, Penguin, and Alphabet to advertise for her in order to hold a concert for her. The stage also cost hundreds of millions of yuan to build. Even if Lin Fan said that he was the richest man in the country, she would still accept it. That was because in Ling Ru's heart, Lin Fan was already as bright as the sun. It was normal for him to have all these achievements. Not long after, the private plane slowly landed. Hong Kong was different from Jiangbei. The entertainment industry here was very developed. It could be said that one could meet celebrities everywhere. As a result, when the people of Hong Kong saw celebrities, they would only be a little surprised and would not go fanatical. After all, they had seen too many of them and had gotten used to them. Plus, Ling Ru is not famous in Hong Kong. Therefore, when she got off the plane, she did not wrap herself up as she did in Jiangbei. Lin Fan, Ling Ru, and Li Fei walked out of the airport. A Rolls-Royce Phantom was already waiting in front of them. As the Rolls-Royce Phantom moved forward steadily, about 20 minutes later, the tallest and most luxurious Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong appeared in front of them. Under the service staff's guidance, Li Fei stayed in Presidential Suite Number 2. She looked at the spacious and luxurious room and was at a loss. She was already very happy to be able to stay at the Peninsula Hotel, but she never thought that she would be staying in the Presidential Suite. One had to know that such a suite costs 100,000 yuan a day. Lin Fan did not care about Li Fei's thoughts. He had already arrived at Presidential Suite Number 1 with Ling Ru. He naturally wanted to stay in the best place with Ling Ru. Li Fei was Ling Ru's manager, so the two of them might have some work to discuss and deal with in the next few days. Staying next door was obviously more convenient. As for the price tag of 100,000 yuan per night, this was already very practical. The Presidential Suite Number 1 of the Peninsula Hotel was the most luxurious suite in the entire hotel. The sofa, table, and chairs were from a well-known Italian brand. The full-length glass allowed one to see the scenery of Hong Kong at a glance. It gave people a relaxed, warm, and home-like feeling. Home. When Ling Ru thought of this word, she could not help but slowly approach Lin Fan. "Oh epsilon. 3 epsilon." Absence made the heart grow fonder, and the two of them became like magnets, tightly glued together. In the blink of an eye, 3 hours had passed. At this moment the sky had already darkened. Lin Fan and Ling Ru showered, changed their clothes, and ate something at the Peninsula Hotel's restaurant. After that, they started to stroll around Hong Kong. Hong Kong was indeed a shopping paradise. Jiangbei was the capital city of Jiang Province, and there were quite a few large shopping malls. However, compared to Hong Kong, they were still nothing. In Hong Kong, almost every street had a large shopping mall. One could see LV, Gucci, and other luxury goods everywhere. Shopping seemed to be a woman's nature. Even Ling Ru was no exception. She walked into one shop after another, trying on clothes, matching them, and asking questions. Her entire pretty face was full of smiles. As long as Ling Ru liked something, Lin Fan would buy it without hesitation. Even so, after an hour of shopping, he only spent 2 million yuan. Some people said that there were 3 major mansions in Hua Nation. One was Ocean Villa in Jingbei, the second was Hilltop Villa in Hong Kong, and the third was the Sandalwood Palace in Madu. At this moment, in a villa on the top of a mountain in Hong Kong, many people gathered together, their faces full of worry. Most of them were from the Tang family. Some people said that Li Keoran was the richest man in Hong Kong. In fact, this statement was not accurate. Li Keoran could only be considered the richest person in Hong Kong. There was another rich man in the dark, and that was Tang Minjuan. Tang Minjuan was very low-key. However, the power and funds he had were no less than Li Keoran's. Today, the old man who held endless wealth suddenly fell ill. The situation was extremely dangerous. I wonder how the situation is. They hoped the old man was fine. In the hall, discussions and sighs could be heard. At this moment, hurried footsteps sounded from outside. 2 men strode in. When everyone saw them, they all respectfully called out, "Hello, Old Master Zhou." "Greetings, Old Master Zhou." This old man was none other than Zhou Guotao, the old master of the Zhou family in Jingbei. The middle-aged man beside him was the second son of the Zhou family, Zhou Shihong. Old Master Zhou did not care about everyone's greetings and asked bluntly, "How is old Tang?" A man in a white shirt called Tang Hua sighed and said, "He fell seriously ill at 2 a.m. and hasn't woken up again. The doctor is still trying to save him." Old Master Zhou just stared at the ward in front of him without saying anything. However, he was very worried. Otherwise, he would not have come all the way to Hong Kong. About half an hour later, the doors to the ward slowly opened. 3 doctors walked out with exhausted faces. The people waiting in the hall quickly surrounded him. Tang Hua anxiously asked, "How is the old man?" The 3 doctors looked at each other, but none of them dared to speak. "Hurry up and tell me," Tang Hua said again. The doctor standing in the middle finally said, "Old master's situation is terrible. You have to be mentally prepared at all times." As soon as he said this, a wave of wails immediately sounded at the scene. "Old master! No!" Zhou Guotao's old man's eyes were also slightly red. Someone shouted, "There must be another way, there must be." "That's right. I've already invited a famous doctor from America. When he comes to Hong Kong, he'll definitely be able to save the old man." Firstly, Tang Minjuan treated the Tang family very well, and the family members could not bear to part with him. Secondly, Tang Minjuan was a stabilizing force for the Tang family. If they lost him, the entire Tang family might face a terrifying crisis. Zhou Guotao did not have that many thoughts. He really could not bear to see his old friend leave. "Find a doctor." Zhou Guotao's eyes moved slightly. After a moment of hesitation, Zhou Guotao finally took out his phone and found Lin Fan's name. "Quiet down," he shouted. "I'll contact the divine doctor and see if he has time to come over." As soon as Zhou Guotao finished speaking, the entire hall quickly fell silent. It was because the person who said this was the old man of the Zhou family, Zhou Guotao. Since he said that he was looking for a divine doctor, he must be an amazing doctor. Perhaps the other party really could save the old master. Thinking of this, everyone looked at Zhou Guotao with anticipation. Zhou Guotao finally made a call. After a while, the call connected, and Lin Fan's clear voice came from the other end. "Old Master Zhou, why did you call me today?" Zhou Guotao did not waste any time and said, "Lin Fan, do you have time to come to Hong Kong to save someone?" "Hong Kong?" Lin Fan asked curiously. Zhou Guotao said, "I know this request is a bit difficult, but I have no choice. He's a very good old friend of mine. Also, he played a part in the smooth return of Hong Kong. I really don't want him to leave like this." Lin Fan said, "Old master, you misunderstood. I'm coming over now. Where are you?" Lin Fan was a person who would repay one's kindness. Zhou Guotao had helped him several times. Now that Zhou Guotao had a request, Lin Fan naturally would not reject it. Moreover, the person he was going to save had contributed greatly to Hua Nation. When Zhou Guotao heard this, his face could not help but reveal a hint of joy. Lin Fan was willing to come over. Old Tang was saved. One had to know. Zhou Guotao was saved by Lin Fan. In fact, not only was he saved, but all his other ailments were also cured by Lin Fan. In the past few months, he even felt that he had become a few years younger. Otherwise, no matter how good Zhou Guotao's relationship with Tang Minjuan was, he would not have come all the way here just because Tang Minjuan was seriously ill. Zhou Guotao could say he had personally experienced Lin Fan's miraculous medical skills. In addition, Zhou Guotao was one of the few people in Hua Nation who knew about Lin Fan's other identities. He was the captain of Dragon Division's Team 10, he solved several math problems, he saved the life of Qin Weiming's grandson, and he also invented the earthquake prediction device. All of this proved that Lin Fan was extremely powerful. That was why Zhou Guotao was so polite to Lin Fan. Zhou Guotao quickly said, "I'll get someone to book a plane ticket for you and pick you up at the airport." Lin Fan said, "No need, I'm in Hong Kong, just tell me the location and I'll come over." Zhou Guotao was stunned for a moment. Very soon he was overjoyed, "We're in Hilltop Villa 1. In fact, when Lin Fan agreed to come over, Zhou Guotao was still a little worried. Of course, he did not doubt Lin Fan's medical skills. He was just worried that when Lin Fan arrived, Tang Minjuan would already be dead. After all, Jiangbei was still quite a distance away from Hong Kong. Zhou Guotao did not expect Lin Fan to be in Hong Kong. This was definitely good news, extremely good news. After hanging up, Lin Fan said to Ling Ru, "A friend is seriously ill, I need to go over and take a look." "Then you should go quickly," Ling Ru quickly said. She asked hesitantly after a pause, "Can I go with you?" That was because Ling Ru knew that Lin Fan had other women. What if this friend knew another woman? Therefore Ling Ru was a little cautious. Lin Fan smiled, "Of course." Then he called a driver under the Peninsula Hotel. After a while, the Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped steadily in front of them. Lin Fan put all the bags from the shopping spree into the trunk. Then he said to the driver, "Hilltop Villa 1. The driver was stunned. Many ordinary people only treated the mountaintop villa as a scenic spot. They stood in the distance and took a few glances at it, sighing in admiration. However, the driver knew that the people living in the villa area were all very important people. Villa 1 was the residence of the Tang family, one of the two superpowers in Hong Kong. Where was this customer going? Hilltop Villa 1, the driver repeated. Yes, Lin Fan said. After the driver received Lin Fan's approval, he could not help but be more respectful to him. The Rolls-Royce Phantom slowly started up. Like a boat sailing in water, it was very stable. About half an hour later, they saw a villa located on the top of the mountain. At this moment, two well-built security guards strode over and asked warily, "May I ask who you are? Why are you here?" If it were a security guard from another place, they would definitely be very polite when they saw that the other party had come out of a Rolls-Royce Phantom. They would even try their best to please the other party. However, Hilltop Villa, a Rolls-Royce Phantom was nothing. The security guards would be wary of the other party before confirming their identity. Just as Lin Fan was about to reply, a large group of people walked over. The leader was none other than Zhou Guotao, the old master of the Zhou family. "Lin Fan, I didn't expect you to come over so quickly. Old Tang is saved," Zhou Guotao said happily. When the Tang family members standing behind heard this, they were slightly stunned. This was because they could easily tell from Zhou Guotao's words that this young man was the divine doctor that Zhou Guotao was talking about. Such a young divine doctor. He was Zhou Guo's recommendation. If it were someone else who recommended this young man, the Tang family would definitely shout at the other party for causing trouble. Zhou Guotao did not pay much attention to them and said directly, "Lin Fan, time is of the essence. I won't be polite, let's go in quickly." "All right," said Lin Fan. Soon everyone arrived at the hall. Lin Fan said to Ling Ru, "I'll go in and take a look at the patient first. You and old Master Joe wait outside for a while. All right, Ling Ru nodded. A tall and thin middle-aged man called Tang Kai saw Lin Fan walking into the ward and could not help but say, Mr. Lin, we also have some doctors here. Do you need them to go in and help? As he spoke, he pointed at the three doctors beside him. Even though Lin Fan was a divine doctor whom Zhou Guotao, the old man of the Zhou family, had called over, and he knew that Zhou Guotao would never harm his grandfather, Lin Fan was simply too young. He was worried that if Lin Fan went in to treat the old man, it would put him in danger. If the doctors followed them in, the danger would obviously be reduced. How could Lin Fan not understand what he was thinking? There's no need, I don't like people following me around when I'm treating patients. I alone am enough. Tang Kai seemed to want to say something more, but he was stopped by the current head of the Tang family, Tang Hua, with a look. Then Tang Hua bowed slightly and said in a pleading tone, Mr. Lin, I'll leave the old master to you. His tone was very sincere. Lin Fan nodded slightly and said, Don't worry. After saying that, he strolled into the ward under the watchful eyes of everyone in the hall. Creak. With a soft sound, the door of the ward was firmly closed. However, everyone in the hall was still staring at the door, as if they could see the situation in the ward through the door. This ward was about 100 square meters and was extremely spacious. The air was filled with the smell of medicine. On the soft bed lay a thin, sallow-faced old man. Obviously he was Tang Minjuan. Tang Minjuan was wearing an oxygen mask over his nose. The electrocardiogram beside him was slowly fluctuating. Everything showed that Tang Minjuan's situation was very bad. Lin Fan observed silently for a while. Then he placed his finger on Tang Mingyuan's skinny wrist. After about a minute, Lin Fan retracted his finger. With normal treatment, it'll take at least 2 months to get better. One had to know that Lin Fan had Sun Simiao's medical experience. Even so, it would take 2 months to get better. It was not an exaggeration to say that Tang Minjuan was terminally ill. Lin Fan said, That's too troublesome, I'll just use medical water. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Fan spent 10 million yuan to buy a bottle of medical water from the system. Then he took off Tang Minjuan's oxygen mask and poured the medical water into his mouth. After drinking the medical water, the weak fluctuations in the electrocardiography began to rise. Following that, a tinge of blood appeared on Tang Minjuan's sallow face. Then his motionless body twitched slightly. Finally, Tang Minjuan slowly opened his slightly turbid eyes. He first looked at the ceiling. Then his gaze landed on Lin Fan. And you are? Tang Minjuan asked in a hoarse voice. My name is Lin Fan. Old Master Zhou asked me to save you, Lin Fan said. Old Zhou is really thoughtful. Thank you for saving me, Tang Minjuan said in realization. You're welcome. The people outside should be waiting anxiously. I'll let them in first, Lin Fan said. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and opened the door. Creak. When everyone saw the door open, they could not help but look into the ward. How's old Tang? Zhou Guotao asked. Lin Fan said, He's fine, he's already awake, you can go in and see him. He was fine. He was already awake. In fact, ever since Lin Fan entered the ward, it had only taken a few minutes. In just a few minutes, he cured a seriously ill person. How was this possible? Many of the people present had doubtful looks on their faces. Then they slowly walked inside. When they saw Tang Minjuan lying on the bed, they realized that his complexion had improved and he had already woken up. They all became extremely excited. He was awake. He really woke up. Old Master, it's great that you're awake. That's great. Old Master. Tang Hua hurriedly stepped forward and asked, Dad, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Tang Minjuan shook his head. His thoughts were clear and his voice was steady and powerful. Quick, check my dad's physical condition, Tang Kai said to the doctors beside him. The 3 doctors responded and went forward to listen to the old master's voice, take his pulse, look at his pupils and check his tongue. Soon their eyes widened in disbelief. How's old master? Tang Kai asked anxiously. Hurry up and say something. The bald doctor finally reacted and stuttered. His condition is very good, however, it's best to do a more detailed examination. With the doctor's confirmation, the Tang family became even happier. At the same time, everyone looked at Lin Fan in shock. Old Joe, you even rushed all the way from Jingbei for me, an old bag of bones. I really feel bad. Why are you still so polite between us? Zhou Guotao asked. Yes, 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 Tang Minjuan nodded. Everyone did not stay in the ward for long. Firstly, the doctor still needed to do a further examination on Tang Minjuan. Secondly, Tang Minjuan had just woken up and needed to rest. It was nighttime. Lin Fan, Ling Ru, Zhou Guotao, and the others stayed in Hilltop Villa under the invitation of the Tang family. Unlike the Peninsula Hotel, which was located in the middle of the city and was extremely noisy, Hilltop Villa was located on a quiet mountaintop. When one looked up, they could see the bright stars. It was a different feeling. In the blink of an eye, it was the second day. When Lin Fan and Ling Ru went downstairs, Tang Minjuan and Zhou Guotao were sitting in the courtyard, chatting about interesting things and laughing from time to time. When Tang Minjuan saw Lin Fan, he asked with concern, "Did you sleep all right?" Lin Fan said, "The air is fresh and the scenery is great. It's very comfortable. Old master is good at choosing locations." "Is that so? Since you like it, there's another similar house on the opposite mountain. I'll give it to you," Tang Minjuan said. A villa on the top of a mountain. One had to know that the price of Hilltop Villa was several billion yuan. In fact, there was no supply. This was not something that could be bought with money. Lin Fan waved his hand and said, "Forget it, I rarely come to Hong Kong." "You rarely come, but you will come. It's better than leaving it empty in my hands," Tang Minjuan said. Zhou Guotao smiled and said, "Lin Fan, just accept it. It's just a villa. It's nothing to you and old Tang." When Lin Fan heard that, he did not reject it anymore. It was because he had slept very comfortably yesterday. Also, Ling Ru seemed to like this place. "All right, then I'll accept your offer," Lin Fan said. Instantly, the atmosphere became more relaxed. Tang Hua walked over slowly with a graceful, dignified, and beautiful woman on his arm. Tang Minjuan said, "Tang Hua, you came at the right time. Quickly transfer Villa 6 to Lin Fan." "All right," Tang Hua said. Although Villa 6 was quite valuable compared to Tang Minjuan's life, it was not worth mentioning at all. Tang Minjuan's medical report was out. His body had completely recovered. In fact, his body stats were even better than before his illness. It was all because of Lin Fan. Therefore, Tang Hua did not hesitate. "Are you Sister Nai Min?" Ling Ru, who had been standing at the side, suddenly shouted in surprise. The dignified and beautiful woman smiled and said, "It's me." "It's really you, Sister Nai Min? I'm a fan of yours," Ling Ru exclaimed excitedly. "Out of all your albums, I like Spring and Four Seasons the most." This sentence definitely came from Ling Ru's heart. In fact, a large part of the reason why she stayed in the bar and wanted to become a singer was because of Nai Min's influence. She yearned to be like Nai Min, to sing wantonly at a grand concert and receive the applause of countless people. Later, Nai Min suddenly quit the entertainment industry. There were rumors that she married into a wealthy family. From the looks of it, she had married into the Tang family. Ling Ru instantly turned into a fangirl, and she became excited when she spoke. Then she said while a little embarrassed, "Sister Nai Min, can I have your autograph?" Of course, Nai Min said with a smile. When Ling Ru heard this, she wanted to look for a pen and paper, but she realized that she did not bring them with her. Zhou Guotao, who was sitting at the side, said, "I have a pen and paper here." As he spoke, he handed over a Parker fountain pen and a small notebook. "Thank you, old master," Ling Ru said. Nai Min picked up a fountain pen and quickly signed her name. Her handwriting was free and elegant. Ling Ru held the notebook tightly in her hand like a treasure. Lin Fan smiled and said, "You've fulfilled your wish now, right?" "Yes, yes," Ling Ru nodded vigorously. It was a small interlude of a fan meeting her favorite star. The atmosphere became even more relaxed. "Did you specially bring Ling Ru to Hong Kong this time?" Zhou Guotao asked. Lin Fan said, "Ling Ru and Sister Nai Min are both singers. This time she was nominated for the Golden Melody Award and the Best Newcomer Award. I came here with her for that." Zhou Guotao revealed a look of realization. Nai Min's eyes lit up. I was just thinking that the name Ling Ru sounded familiar, so you're the singer of Galaxy. The song has a light rhythm and is very nice to listen to. I've been listening to the song for a while now. Ling Ru became even happier when she heard that. After all, to be able to make one's idol like one's work was definitely something to be proud of. Thank you for your praise, Sister Nai Min. This song was composed by Lin Fan and he sings it much better than me, Ling Ru said. Is that so? Nai Min's interest was immediately piqued. She loved music. If Lin Fan was not the person who saved Tang Minjuan, and Tang Minjuan was right here, she would want to ask Lin Fan to sing for her. Lin Fan smiled. Ling Ru, you're too humble, you sing very well too. You're indeed very good, at least in my opinion there hasn't been anyone who can sing better than you in the past 2 years. Ling Ru's pretty face immediately bloomed with a smile. Really? Yes, Nai Min said. Nai Min rarely praises people like this. It looks like this year's Golden Melody Award and Best Newcomer Award are all yours. Tang Hua laughed. Right, Ling Ru, you might not know yet, but Nai Min is this year's guest presenter. Nai Min looked at Tang Hua without batting an eyelid. In fact, the Golden Melody Awards had indeed invited Nai Min to be the guest of honor this year. Rather, it was not just this year but almost every year. However, every year, Nai Min would directly reject the offer. This year was no exception. However, since Tang Hua said so, there was naturally no problem. Yes, Nai Min nodded. That's great, Ling Ru said happily. After lunch, Ling Ru and Lin Fan left the villa. That was because the Golden Melody Award ceremony was tonight. Ling Ru needed to get her makeup done early and make some preparations. When they arrived at the Peninsula Hotel, Li Fei, Ling Ru's manager, was already in a panic. When she saw Ling Ru, she hurriedly asked the makeup artist to style her. This took several hours. However, one had to admit that the result was very good. Ling Ru's long black hair was tied up in a bun. She wore a dazzling diamond necklace on her snow-white neck. She wore a white glass-like dress and a pair of exquisite crystal shoes. She gave off the feeling of a fairy descending from the sky. She was so dazzling. You're so beautiful, Lin Fan could not help but say. When Ling Ru heard this, she felt as if she had eaten honey. This year's Golden Melody Award ceremony was held at the Times Hotel. At this moment, a fiery red carpet was laid out in front of the entrance of the Times Hotel. A woman with a hot figure in a gray dress slowly stepped onto the carpet. The reporters in the distance started shouting, "It's Dai Jixi. So beautiful." Then the reporters picked up their cameras and pressed the shutter, and the flashes continued. Dai Jixi enjoyed the feeling of being the center of attention and being photographed, so she deliberately slowed down her steps. At this moment, a Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped in front of the entrance of the Times Hotel. Then Ling Ru walked down slowly. In an instant, the reporters could not help but scream. Heavens, isn't she too beautiful? She's definitely the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. A woman? No, she's a fairy. Quick, take a photo. Instantly, the cameras that were originally focused on Dai Jixi shifted to Ling Ru. The flash shone on Ling Ru's pretty face, making it look as bright as jade. Ling Ru felt that it was too glaring, so she could not help but quicken her pace on the red carpet. Soon, she walked past Dai Jixi. Dai Jixi's expression was slightly cold, but in the eyes of outsiders she maintained a smile. When she signed her name on the signature board and strolled backstage, the smile on her face instantly disappeared. What replaced it was endless coldness. Dai Jixi's gaze locked onto Ling Ru, then she quickly walked toward her and bumped into her. Ling Ru accidentally fell to the ground. Dai Jixi said, "I'm sorry, I accidentally bumped into you, let me help you up." As she spoke, she reached out to pull Ling Ru up. However, Dai Jixi deliberately let go of her hand halfway through. Ling Ru fell to the ground again. Dai Jixi slowly bent over and said coldly in Ling Ru's ear, "Next time, remember not to casually surpass your seniors." Then Dai Jixi straightened her back. "Oh, it's my fault for being too weak, I can't even pull you up." As she spoke, she even swung her arms, looking a little exhausted. Dai Jixi had some acting skills. Even if this scene was seen by others, it would probably be difficult for them to say anything. After falling down twice, Ling Ru's body was in extreme pain. Her eyes were red from being wronged and tears fell from them. It took her a lot of effort to slowly get up from the ground. At this moment, Lin Fan and Li Fei walked over from afar. They were not nominated and were not allowed to walk the red carpet. However, as Ling Ru's manager and boss, they could naturally come backstage. Lin Fan quickly noticed that Ling Ru's eyes were red. He asked Ling Ru what's wrong. The grievance in Ling Ru's heart exploded once again. She threw herself into Lin Fan's embrace and her tears fell like raindrops. Lin Fan's heart ached as he gently patted Ling Ru's shoulder. He said, it's okay, I'm here. After comforting her, Lin Fan asked, Ling Ru, what happened? Did someone bully you? Ling Ru hugged Lin Fan and felt his warm and broad chest. She roughly explained what had happened. Lin Fan's face immediately darkened. His eyes shot out two rays of cold light like sharp blades, shooting toward Dai Jixi, who was standing not far away. Dai Jixi's heart trembled inexplicably, and she involuntarily took 2 steps back. However, it was useless. Lin Fan strode forward and slapped Dai Jixi's heavily made-up face. 2 whip-like sounds echoed back and forth at the scene. 2 bright palm prints immediately appeared on Dai Jixi's face, and it gradually swelled up. Lin Fan said coldly, apologized to Ling Ru. These 2 slaps stunned Dai Jixi. After hearing Lin Fan's words, she finally reacted and shouted, how dare you hit me? As soon as she finished speaking, she stretched out her palm and was about to grab Lin Fan's face. Lin Fan said sternly, looks like you didn't understand me. As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Dai Jixi's face again. Dai Jixi's already red and swollen face gradually turned into something like a pig's head. Tears flowed down uncontrollably as she looked at Lin Fan with fear in her eyes. She was scared of being beaten. At this moment, a man in a white shirt walked over quickly. What's wrong, Jixi? He asked. When Dai Jixi saw the person who came, she looked like she had found her savior. She said in a panic, Zhang Lei, you're finally here, look at how he beat me up, quickly take revenge for me. Zhang Lei was Dai Jixi's manager. Like Lin Fan and Li Fei, he could not walk the red carpet. That was why he had only come over now. At this moment, Zhang Lei saw Dai Jixi's swollen face which looked like a pig's head. He was extremely furious. Dai Jixi's popularity was largely due to her good looks. Now that her face had been beaten to such a state, it would definitely affect her popularity. Having her popularity be affected meant that his income would also be affected. Zhang Lei was about to shout angrily. At this moment, another set of footsteps could be heard not far away. It was Wang Heahua, the chairman of Xin-Mei Entertainment. Even though the Golden Melody Awards were a huge deal, a chairman like Wang Heahua would not attend personally. However, it was different this time. This time, the boss woman was nominated for the first time. She might even win an award. He also received news that boss Lin Fan had come personally. In that case, Wang Heahua would not be absent. When he saw Lin Fan and Ling Ru from afar, he quickly walked over and bowed slightly. He said respectfully, hello, Mr. Lin, Ms. Ling. Lin Fan just glanced at him and did not say anything. Zhang Lei, who was about to berate him, shut his mouth. One had to know. Xin-Mei Entertainment was one of the top 3 companies in the entertainment industry. Even Wang Heahua, the chairman of Xin-Mei Entertainment, had to be so respectful to the young man in front of him. In that case, the identity of this young man was worth considering. So, it's Chairman Wang, there must be some misunderstanding about what happened just now, Zhang Lei said. With that, he pulled Dai Jixi and prepared to leave. Dai Jixi was very unhappy. However, she was not stupid, she could only pout and leave. Lin Fan said coldly, you haven't apologized, who allowed you to leave? Dai Jixi was already unhappy. At this moment, she heard Lin Fan's words and she saw that many people were already gathering around her. She became bolder and shouted, I'm leaving. If you have the ability, continue to hit me. Dai Jixi continued walking forward. Lin Fan took a step forward and raised his hand again. 2 more slaps landed on Dai Jixi's face. Immediately, a trickle of fresh blood slowly flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Not only did Lin Fan attack, but his strength was even stronger than before. Daijixi's face was filled with fear and disbelief. There were so many people standing around, she did not expect Lin Fan to dare to hit her. Zheng Lei opened his mouth, wanting to say something. However, when he saw Lin Fan's cold gaze, he swallowed his words. "Apologize, I don't want to say it again," Lin Fan said calmly. Dai Jixi could not help but tremble, her mouth seemed to be out of control as she stammered, "Yes, I'm sorry." Lin Fan said coldly, "Not to me but to Ling Ru." Dai Jixi said again, "I'm sorry." Then she ran forward as if he was escaping. Seeing this, the surrounding crowd also dispersed. They understood that it was not necessarily a good thing to know too much about some things. Lin Fan hugged Ling Ru's waist and said, "Are you feeling better now?" "Yes, yes," Ling Ru nodded vigorously, feeling extremely sweet inside her heart. On the other hand, Li Fei and Wang Keahua, who were beside him, had a worried look on their faces. Eh? Dai Jixi placed ice on her swollen face and shouted, "I was just beaten up. What were you doing there? You didn't even let out a word. Are you even a man?" Zheng Lei found an excuse and said, I was just worried that the more I spoke, the more disadvantageous it would be for you. Didn't you see that even Wang Keahua, the chairman of Xin Mei Entertainment, was so respectful to that young man? He's definitely an extraordinary big shot. In fact, this was only one of the reasons. More importantly, he was afraid. He was scared by Lin Fan's tall figure and his strength. What if he opened his mouth and got beaten up? Dai Jixi felt that what Zheng Lei said made sense. However, she still said angrily, "But you couldn't just stand there and say nothing." "By not saying anything, it could calm him down a little," Zheng Lei said. "I'll make him think that we're cowards, however we can find trouble with him afterward." "Jixi, aren't you close to Sister Nai Min?" Zheng Lei asked after a pause. "I just received news that the guest of honor for this award ceremony has been changed to Sister Nai Min. She'll be here later, you just have to tell Sister Nai Min about this later. Do you think Sister Nai Min will let them have a good time?" No matter how powerful that man's background is, can he compare to Sister Nai Min? Is he comparable to the Tang family? When Dai Jixi heard this, her eyes immediately lit up. "Really? Sister Nai Min is the guest presenter. How can it be fake? I heard it from the executive director," Zheng Lei said. "Good, when we meet Sister Nai Min later, I want to see how arrogant he and that B***tch Ling Ru can be." Dai Jixi grinned hideously. It was as if she could already see Lin Fan and Ling Ru being ravaged by her. What happened backstage was only discussed in a small circle. After all, this matter involved the popular celebrity Dai Jixi and the mysterious young man. Obviously, these two were not to be trifled with. No one dared to gossip. In the dressing room, Ling Ru sat in front of the mirror and touched up her makeup. This award ceremony was simply too important. Creak. The door to the dressing room was slowly pushed open. Dai Jixi, whose entire face was still red and swollen, walked in and sneered, "She's still touching up her makeup." When Ling Ru saw her, she stood up in a panic. Men were not allowed to enter the women's dressing room. Thus Lin Fan was not by her side. "Don't tell me you think you can win some award," Dai Jixi continued. "What a joke. Let me tell you, don't even think about winning any awards on this stage in your lifetime." Her words were extremely firm. Dai Jixi knew very well how influential the Tang family was at the Golden Melody Awards. As long as she met Nai Min later, she would tell her about it. Ling Ru would no longer have a place in the entertainment industry, let alone the Golden Melody Awards. "Ling Ru, are you ready?" Li Fei's clear voice sounded from outside. As she spoke, she slowly pushed open the dressing room's door. When she saw Dai Jixi, Li Fei's expression changed and she asked, "Ling Ru, are you all right? Should we call Mr. Lin over?" When Dai Jixi heard the words "Mr. Lin," she was so scared that her face turned slightly pale. She did not dare to stay any longer and turned to leave quickly. She only heaved a sigh of relief when she reached backstage. At this moment, hurried footsteps sounded not far away. Zheng Lei quickly ran over and shouted, "Jixi, get ready." Sister Nai Min and Mr. Tang Hua are coming over soon. As Zhang Lei finished speaking, a noble woman in luxurious clothes with an extraordinary temperament walked over slowly with a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes. They were none other than Nai Min and Tang Hua. They were here. They really came. Dai Jixi ignored Zhang Lei and excitedly ran over, shouting, "Sister Nai Min." Nai Min turned around when she heard the voice. Even though Nai Min and Dai Jixi were cousins, they were very distant cousins. In fact, before Nai Min became a celebrity, the two of them had never met. After becoming a celebrity, she had only seen her a few times. Dai Jixi's face was red and swollen. Nai Min could not recognize her at all. Dai Jixi saw that Nai Min was a little confused, so she spoke again, "Sister Nai Min, it's me, I'm cousin Jixi." She deliberately addressed her as her cousin to further improve their relationship. As expected, Nai Min immediately remembered when she heard this and asked, "Jixi, what happened to your face? Did someone bully you?" Dai Jixi was delighted. Nai Min was indeed concerned about her. "Lingru Lin Fan, I'll teach you a lesson later." Dai Jixi deliberately sobbed and said, When I was backstage I accidentally bumped into a newcomer. She felt that I did it on purpose, so she got her boyfriend to hit me." At this point, Dai Jixi squeezed out a few tears. Then she quickly said, "I saw the chairman of Xin Mei Entertainment. He's very friendly to her boyfriend anyway, the matter was over. I'll just take it as though they were venting their anger." Dai Jixi had some acting skills. With just a few words, she easily disguised herself as a pitiful sheep. At the same time, she turned Ling Ru and Lin Fan into savage and vicious wolves. Nai Min hated unreasonable people who bullied others. This was because when she was a singer, she had also experienced such a pitiful and helpless time. "We can't just let it go like this." "Don't worry, Jixi," Tang Hua said, "we'll help you." Dai Jixi bit her lip lightly, as if she was having an intense internal struggle. In reality, she was already dancing with joy in her heart. Nai Min and Tang Hua both spoke up. "Lin Fan, Ling Ru, very soon you'll be finished." At this moment, Lin Fan, Ling Ru, Li Fei, and Wang Heihua walked out. Dai Jixi's expression changed slightly and she put on a terrified expression. She pointed at Lin Fan and Ling Ru. It's them." Tang Hua and Nai Min looked in the direction Dai Jixi pointed. In the next moment, both of their expressions changed. Instantly, they no longer looked at Dai Jixi pitifully. Instead, they looked at her with disgust, deep disgust. One had to know. Lin Fan had saved the life of the Tang family's old master. In addition, they also learned some things about Lin Fan from Zhou Guotao. He solved several math problems, invented the earthquake prediction device, the human islet recovery medicine, the super battery, and so on. He was definitely a great scientist, a national treasure. How could such a person be a tyrannical and reckless person? What a joke! Was she trying to fool them like monkeys? When Tang Hua and Nai Min saw Lin Fan also noticed them. His expression remained calm. On the other hand, the faces of Wang Heihua and Li Fei turned slightly pale. They knew Nai Min and Tang Hua. In the past, they had heard that Dai Jixi seemed to have some relationship with Nai Min. Now seeing that Dai Jixi was really with Nai Min, they could not help but panic. One had to know. Nai Min's husband was the current head of the Tang family. The Tang family was one of the two most powerful forces in Hong Kong. It was over. It was over. Lin Fan did not care about the two panicking people and walked toward Nai Min and Tang Hua. After all, they were acquaintances. When Dai Jixi saw Lin Fan walking toward her, she laughed coldly in her heart. "I was just thinking about how to teach you a lesson. I didn't expect you to come right over." "Are you talking about the young couple on the left?" Tang Hua asked with a gloomy face. Dai Jixi's entire heart was filled with joy, so she did not notice the changes in Tang Hua and Nai Min. She put on an extremely frightened expression and said with a trembling voice, yes, it's them. No, don't." At this moment, Tang Hua suddenly raised his hand and slapped Dai Jixi's swollen face. He really could not stand a woman lying to him like a stupid pig. This slap stunned Dai Jixi. She covered her face in disbelief. This This. What was going on? Why was she beaten up again? Moreover, it seemed to be Tang Hua. Just as Dai Jixi was in a daze, Lin Fan and Ling Ru walked over. Tang Hua said with a slightly fawning tone, Mr. Lin, Ms. Lin. 406 Return Yati Automobile, 1. Silence. The entire place was silent. Dai Jixi, Zheng Lei, Li Fei, and Wang Heahua were all stunned. Tang Hua actually took the initiative to greet Lin Fan and Ling Ru. Moreover, there was a hint of flattery in his tone. Flattery. The current head of the Tang family wanted to curry favor with Lin Fan and Ling Ru. This. What was going on? Lin Fan nodded at Tang Hua and Nai Min and said, You guys are here. After a pause, he pointed at Dai Jixi and said, You know this sinister woman. Sister Nai Min, Mr. Tang, don't listen to his nonsense. Dai Jixi's heart skipped a beat. Nonsense? Lin Fan said. Just because Ling Ru walked in front of you on the red carpet, you deliberately knocked her down. Then you pretended to help her up, but in reality you just wanted to threaten her. Sister Nai Min, I'm your cousin, you have to believe me, Dai Jixi panicked. As she spoke, she was about to hug Nai Min's arm. Nai Min pushed Dai Jixi away and said coldly, Do I look like a fool? In addition, I'm warning you, from now on, don't rely on the fact that we're cousins or say that we know each other to swindle people outside. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. Nai Min hated people who played tricks on her the most. As for their relationship as cousins, Nai Min directly threw it aside. It was because she and Dai Jixi could barely be considered cousins. In fact, they were relatives. Before Nai Min became a superstar, the two of them had never met. Nai Min knew very well that Dai Jixi only wanted to borrow her power. However, she did not care too much about it. It was because helping Dai Jixi was just a small matter for Nai Min. It was not a big deal to help someone who could barely be considered an acquaintance. Now, however, this person who often borrowed her influence was using her to deal with the old man's savior, a national treasure. She was simply detestable. How despicable. As Nai Min's voice fell, Dai Jixi's heart suddenly froze. She was in utter despair. It was over. She knew that she was completely finished. Compared to Dai Jixi's despair, Li Fei and Wang Heahua were filled with joy and excitement. Even Tang Hua and Nai Min had to curry favor with their boss. Good. That was great. Lin Fan, Ling Ru, Tang Hua, and Nai Min did not pay attention to the people who had different thoughts. They walked forward and chatted casually. After Lin Fan and the others left, Dai Jixi said in a trembling voice, Zheng Lei, what should we do now? How am I supposed to know? Zheng Lei said in annoyance. After saying that, he turned around and left. As a manager, Zheng Lei understood the entertainment industry better than Dai Jixi. At the same time, he understood the influence of the Tang family better. Dai Jixi's singing and acting skills were average, but because she had some connections with the Tang family, she was able to obtain a large amount of resources and become a popular celebrity. Now she had lost the Tang family and even offended them. In that case, she would soon lose these things just like how she had obtained them previously. Zheng Lei. Dai Jixi called out a few times and chased after him. She was careless and fell to the ground. She fell flat on his face. This scene was witnessed by the crowd not far away. They discussed in low voices and took out their phones to send messages. As the lively music played, two hosts who were dressed elegantly walked onto the stage. They talked about the development, influence, and meaning of music. Their tone was impassioned, but at the same time it was humorous, causing the crowd to cheer. In addition, there were some song and dance performances in between, making the atmosphere extremely lively. At this moment, the male host in a black suit said, Next, we will proceed with the most exciting award ceremony. In the audience, the nominated singers all became solemn, feeling extremely nervous and expectant. Among them included Ling Ru and Dai Jixi, whose face was still red and swollen. Lin Fan patted Ling Ru's fair hand and said, Don't worry, there won't be a problem. Yes, Ling Ru nodded vigorously. The male host exclaimed, The winner of this year's Golden Melody Newcomer Award is Ling Ru. The sound system immediately started playing exciting music. At the same time, everyone applauded enthusiastically. Ling Ru was so happy that she was stunned. She won an award. She really won the Golden Melody Newcomer Award. Lin Fan smiled. Silly girl, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and go on stage. When Ling Ru heard his voice, she came back to her senses. She nodded vigorously and walked towards the stage. A dazzling light shone on Ling Ru. Ling Ru was already very beautiful, and she had dressed up meticulously today. Now, under the illumination of the stage lights, her entire body became crystal clear. She was slender and beautiful. Everyone was mesmerized by her. The male host could not help but say, "Oh my God, she's so beautiful. She's definitely the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." After a pause, the female host continued, "Of course, Ling Ru isn't just beautiful, her songs are even more beautiful. I'll never forget the grand concert in Jiangbei a few months ago. I'll never forget the elegant and free sword dance, and I'll never forget the long and crisp The World of Man. Of course, there's also her best and most enjoyable song, Galaxy. Even though we're only a few months into this year, I can say that Ling Ru is the most popular singer of the year. Congratulations, Ling Ru." After the female host finished speaking, the audience burst into applause again. At this moment, the male host said, "Next up, let's invite our heavenly queen, Nai Min, to present the award to the winner of the Golden Melody Best Newcomer Award, Ling Ru." The applause became even more enthusiastic. Some people applauded because of Nai Min's identity. They really liked Nai Min's songs. Even though Nai Min had not released a new song for several years, the songs that she had released in the past were still sung by many people and were liked by many. It could be said that more than half of the people present were Nai Min's fans. Nai Min came to the stage and handed over a shiny trophy. "Thank you, Sister Nai Min," Ling Ru said happily. What could be happier than her idol giving her an award? "You deserve it," Nai Min said with a smile. The two of them stood together and spoke softly. Their faces were filled with smiles. Countless flashes of light gathered on the two of them, making them extremely beautiful. "Sister Nai Min, do you have anything to say to Ling Ru?" The female host handed over the microphone. "A few months ago, when I accidentally heard songs like Galaxy, Three Lives, and The World of Man, I was immediately attracted by Ling Ru's singing. At that time, I lamented that it had been a long time since a singer with such superb singing skills appeared in the music industry. Now, I'm not surprised to see her win the Golden Melody Best Newcomer Award because she deserves it." The venue once again erupted in warm applause. They had never heard Nai Min praise a singer like this before. Those who liked Nai Min also started to like Ling Ru. Those who liked her became even prouder of her. "Thank you, Sister Nai Min," Ling Ru said excitedly. When Nai Min and Ling Ru were about to walk down the stage, the two hosts stopped them. "Sister Nai Min, Ling Ru, please wait a moment," the male host laughed. "Yes, I have to delay you for a little longer." The female host cleared her throat and said, "Next, we will present the most important award of the day. The winner of the Golden Melody Award is Ling Ru's Galaxy." One person won 2 awards. Moreover, they were the 2 most important awards. The crowd burst into applause again. "Sister Nai Min, please present the award to Ling Ru." Nai Min picked up another transparent trophy and handed it to Ling Ru. She then picked up the microphone and said, "I just want to say that with Ling Ru's singing, it's only right for her to win these awards. In addition, these 2 awards are definitely not Ling Ru's end but her starting point." "Thank you, Sister Nai Min," Ling Ru said with a trembling voice. She held the 2 trophies in her hands, and her eyes that were shining with starlight landed on Lin Fan. She understood that the reason why she was able to win these awards was all because of Lin Fan. In the audience, Dai Jixi's entire face was red and swollen. She looked at Ling Ru on stage and could not help but cry. These awards were originally hers. Now there was nothing left, there was nothing left. At this moment, Dai Jixi's phone vibrated slightly. A piece of news popped up. Dai Jixi's relationship exposed. She's dating 3 people at the same time. One by one, photos of Dai Jixi holding hands with different men as they entered the hotel, as well as their intimate actions, appeared on the internet. Seeing this, Daijixi's phone fell to the ground. It was over. She was really finished. Eh? After the Golden Melody Awards, Lin Fan and Ling Ru stayed in Hong Kong for a few more days before taking a private plane back to Jiangbei. The next day the sky was clear. Lin Fan opened his eyes slowly. He looked at his phone. A text message had appeared on the screen as usual. Notice from Merchant Bank, 7,542,900 yuan was deposited into your account. Then he turned his attention to the sign-in system. Sign in. Ding, congratulations, you have obtained 20% of Yati's shares. 20% of Yati's shares. Lin Fan's expression changed slightly. A few years ago, Yati was only a relatively low-end automobile company. However, with the vigorous development of new energy vehicles in recent years, Yati had gradually become a top automobile company domestically and even internationally, with a market value of nearly 800 billion yuan. 20% of the shares was about 150 billion yuan. Lin Fan nodded and muttered, "Today's sign-in is not bad." He yawned and slowly got up from the bed. After washing up, he leisurely ate his delicious breakfast. While he was relaxing, Wang Fugui, the chairman of Yati Automobile, was uneasy. That was because Wang Fugui had discovered that 20% of Yati Automobile's shares had been acquired by someone else. One had to know. As the chairman and founder, he only had 24% of the shares. As long as the other party bought more, they would be able to surpass him. At that time, would Yati Automobile still belong to him? Wang Fugui sat on the soft executive chair and sighed. Lin Fan is so young, who exactly is he? Wang Fugui took out a stack of documents. After hesitating for a long time, he finally dialed the number according to the shareholders' information. After a while the call went through. Wang Fugui said in a slightly nervous voice, "Excuse me, are you Mr. Lin Fan?" Eh? At this moment, Lin Fan had just finished his breakfast. He wiped the grease off the corner of his mouth and said, "Yes, who are you?" "Mr. Lin, I'm the chairman of Yati Automobile, Wang Fugui," Wang Fugui said. "Oh, Chairman Wang, hello," Lin Fan said. Lin Fan had received calls like this many times. Therefore, it was not too surprising. "I know that you've bought 20% of our shares," Wang Fugui said. "First of all, thank you very much for your trust in us. In addition, I will now give a simple explanation of the future development direction of our Yati Automobile. If you have any suggestions or opinions, you can let me know. In the future, we'll firmly develop battery-powered new energy vehicles and..." However, before he could finish, Lin Fan said, "You don't have to tell me this. The reason why I bought your shares is because I trust you. As Lin Fan said this, he suddenly stopped. That was because a clear notification sounded in his mind. Ding, mission, watch a battery experiment, read the safety analysis of electric vehicle power batteries, the engineering of batteries, the technology basics of electric vehicles, the powertrain of electric vehicles, and the theory of vehicle batteries. Reward, 1 ultra-speed battery, as well as its detailed research and development data, principles, etc., and your chemistry experience will be upgraded." When Wang Fugui heard the first half of Lin Fan's words, he was so happy that he could not control himself. Lin Fan did not want to listen to him talk about the development direction of Yati Automobile because he trusted him. In that case, he would not interfere with the management of the company. This was definitely good news. That was because if that was the case, Lin Fan would be no different from a normal small shareholder. He would only receive a fixed amount of dividends. Just as Wang Fugui was overjoyed, Lin Fan said, "About the development of new energy vehicles, I'll call you later." After that, Lin Fan hung up the phone. Wang Fugui was the only one left holding his phone in a daze. What was going on? Did he not say that he believed in him? Was he going to interfere with the company's new energy development? Wang Fugui heaved a long sigh and got up to look at the vast scenery outside the window. He muttered, "What should I do?" Lin Fan had no idea what Wang Fugui was thinking. At this moment, Lin Fan drove the Cullinan to Jiangbei University, which he had not seen for a long time. He did not choose to go to the classroom. Instead, he walked past the basketball court and went straight to the teaching building. Even though Lin Fan had only been here once, With his photographic memory, he was as familiar with the entire teaching building as he was with his home. Soon, Lin Fan arrived at the entrance of the chemistry teaching room and slowly pushed the door open. Professor Zhao Zukin and Professor Li Rongfa were leading 3 PhD students to study something carefully. After a long time of research, Zhao Zukin's mouth was dry. He turned around and picked up the thermos cup to drink a mouthful of goji berry water. In the next moment, Lin Fan, Zhao Zukin suddenly shouted excitedly. As soon as he said that, Li Rongfa and the 3 PhD students stopped their research and looked at Lin Fan. Lin Fan coughed lightly and said, am I disturbing you? No, no, Zhao Zukin said. Why would you be disturbing us? Li Rongfa asked. We're so happy that you're here to guide the experiment. Zhao Zukin replied, that's right. Their words were extremely sincere. They still remembered clearly that Lin Fan had come to the laboratory for a stroll not long ago. Then, he wrote a paper on the principle and usage of super batteries and successfully published it in Science. This thesis changed the mobile phone industry. At the same time, it allowed the field of battery to take a big step forward. What made Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa even happier was Lin Fan had actually put their names as the second author. It was also because of this that Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa had recently become famous in the school and even the entire chemistry world. This was the most glorious moment they had ever had in their lives. Now Lin Fan had come to the laboratory. If he invented something or even wrote a thesis. Thinking of this, Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa were excited. What are Professor Zhao and Professor Li researching now? Lin Fan asked. The chemistry community unanimously believes that your super battery has already pushed the limits of small-scale batteries to what's attainable in this century, Zhao Zukin hurriedly said. Therefore, we've recently stopped researching small-scale batteries and changed our direction to new energy vehicle batteries. Li Rongfa chimed in, yes, but since we've just started this project, everything is only in the initial stage. The two of them scrambled to answer. It was as if they were trying to answer first. After saying that, the two of them looked at Lin Fan expectantly. They were looking forward to Lin Fan giving them some guidance and help. When had the students in the laboratory ever seen the two professors like this? It was like a conversation between a student and a teacher. However, none of them had any strange expressions. That was because Lin Fan was publicly acknowledged as the #1 person in chemistry. Compared to the anticipation of the crowd, Lin Fan had a weird look on his face. He had just received a mission regarding energy vehicle batteries. It turned out that they just happened to be researching new energy vehicle batteries. What a coincidence! After a while, Lin Fan said, have you done any experiments? We've already done material experiments and high-temperature experiments, Zhao Zukin said hurriedly. Next, we're also preparing to do different kinds of efficiency experiments, high molecular experiments, and so on, Li Rongfa added. Lin Fan did not bother with Li Rongfa's words. As long as he had done experiments, it was fine. His mission was to watch an experiment. Lin Fan said, then you guys can experiment with the materials and show me what you've done. All right, Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa said in unison. Hurry up and prepare the experimental materials. Zhao Zukin turned around and said to the students. Everyone get your spirits up, treat this experiment as a graduation assessment, Li Rongfa said. Yes sir, the students shouted. In fact, there was no need for the two of them to remind them. The students also knew that this was a rare opportunity. After all, Lin Fan was the #1 person in terms of chemical batteries. He was a big shot among big shots. If they could get some pointers by doing experiments in front of him, it would definitely be a very rare opportunity. Soon, the students sorted the different materials in order, including heating, compressing, and vaporizing. The materials emitted different colors of light. Then, a twisting curve appeared on the computer screen. Half an hour later, the experiment slowly ended. Lin Fan, which material do you think is the most suitable? Li Rongfa asked with anticipation. After he finished speaking, Zhao Qin and the other professors looked at Lin Fan expectantly. Lin Fan did not answer immediately but focused on the mission. Ding, mission, watch a battery experiment 1-1. Read the safety analysis of electric vehicle power batteries, the engineering of batteries, the technology basics of electric vehicles, the powertrain of electric vehicles, and the theory of vehicle batteries. 05. Reward 1 ultra-speed battery, as well as its detailed research and development data, principles, etc., and your chemistry experience will be upgraded. Seeing this, Lin Fan's lips curled up. Half of the mission was completed. Then Lin Fan said, I need to think about the specific materials. After saying that, he turned around and left the laboratory. All right, goodbye, Lin Fan, Zhao Zukin raised his voice and said. Goodbye, Lin Fan. Goodbye, the student said. Lin Fan did not turn around. Instead, he waved his hand behind him. Soon he arrived at the library. As usual, the library was overcrowded. Lin Fan passed through the crowd, past the history bookshelves, and past the language bookshelves. He went straight to the battery and new energy bookshelf. The safety analysis of electric vehicle power batteries, the engineering of batteries. Ordinary people might have to search for the books slowly. However, with a single glance, Lin Fan easily found all the books he needed. Then Lin Fan looked into the distance. A female student in a gray dress with her hair hanging naturally on her shoulders was sitting there reading seriously. It was Lu Ling, whom Lin Fan often met. There were many books on the table next to Lu Lin, indicating that there was someone sitting there. Lin Fan did not mind at all as he strode over. Lu Ling seemed to have noticed something and slowly raised her head. When she saw that it was Lin Fan, her brows, which were originally slightly furrowed because of the difficult questions, immediately relaxed. She said happily, You're here, sit down. Lin Fan did not stand on ceremony and sat down. Then he flipped open the first book, The Safety Analysis of Electric Vehicle Power Batteries. Immediately, there was a rush of flipping of pages. In 3 minutes, a book with hundreds of pages had been flipped through. Then, it was the second book, The Engineering of Batteries. The third book, The Technology Basics of Electric Vehicles. In just 10 minutes, Lin Fan had finished reading all 5 books. At this moment, a crisp notification rang out in Lin Fan's mind. Ding, mission completed. Ding, mission, watch a battery experiment 1-1. Read the safety analysis of electric vehicle power batteries, the engineering of batteries, the technology basics of electric vehicles, the powertrain of electric vehicles, and the theory of vehicle batteries. 5-5. Reward 1 ultra-speed battery, as well as its detailed research and development data, principles, etc., and your chemistry experience will be upgraded. Ding, chemistry professor level experience upgraded to chemistry academician experience. All of a sudden, a vast amount of complicated chemistry knowledge as well as complicated battery structures and principles flooded into Lin Fan's mind like a tidal wave. Lin Fan thought back to the things that this knowledge would bring him. His lips curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. Lu Ling saw that Lin Fan had finished flipping through all the books. She could not help but ask, Lin Fan, are you done reading? Lin Fan nodded, yeah. You really don't know quantum reading? Lu Ling asked again. Lin Fan smiled, that's just a trick. All right, Lu Ling said. You seem to be reading battery books again. Yes, but this time it's a new energy battery for cars, Lin Fan said. Then Lin Fan pointed at the questions written on the notebook in front of Lu Lin and asked, Are these the questions that you don't know how to solve? Speaking of these questions, Lu Ling could not help but nod shyly. Lin Fan casually glanced at them and wrote the solutions down without thinking. The tip of the pen collided with the table, making a hurried sound. Very soon, a series of very detailed calculations appeared on the notebook. A moment later, Lin Fan stood up and said, Take your time. Although Lu Ling had seen Lin Fan answer difficult questions quickly many times, each time she saw him write out extremely detailed answers without thinking, she could not help but be surprised. After a while she stammered, Okay, all right. Lin Fan did not hear this voice. It was because he had already walked out of the library and arrived at the parking lot. Lin Fan got into the Cullinan, stepped on the accelerator and sped forward. In just 20 minutes, he returned to the coiling dragon villa. Then Lin Fan turned his attention to the system. Do you want to retrieve the super battery? Yes. The next moment, a battery pack that looked like a desktop computer appeared in front of him. Lin Fan sized it up and muttered, Is this a super battery? It's not big. Then he lifted it with his hands and said, "About 20 kilograms, it's not too heavy." Then Lin Fan looked at the black super smart watch on his wrist and said, "Lil White. Master, I'm here." The super smart watch flickered slightly and made a crisp sound. "Help me apply for the patent for this super battery." Lin Fan pointed at the battery in front of him. "All right, Master," Lil White said. As soon as it finished speaking, the super smart watch shot out a red scanning line. A few minutes later, "Master, the global patent application has been completed." Then, electronic patent documents appeared on the screen of the super smart watch. Lin Fan nodded his head in satisfaction and said, "By the way, Lil White, can you write a paper on this super battery?" Every time he watched an experiment, he would have to write a thesis. This had almost become a habit for Lin Fan. "Master, I've already written it," Lil White said. Lil White seemed to have predicted that Lin Fan would need such a thesis. Almost as soon as it finished speaking, an email popped up on Lin Fan's phone. It was titled "The Principle and Use of Super Batteries." In fact, Lil White even wrote Lin Fan's name on the position of the first author. Li Rongfa and Zhao Zuqing names were placed as the second author. Lin Fan was satisfied. "Good job. I sent it to Science last time, so this time, Nature." "Lil White, tell the editor of Nature to review it as soon as possible." "Yes, Master," Lil White replied. It was midnight in America. In the house of Esmond Bevan, the editor of Nature, all kinds of electrical appliances suddenly started ringing. However, he was not afraid or angry. On the contrary, he became extremely excited and quickly turned on his computer. Sure enough, an email appeared on the screen. "The Principle and Use of Super Batteries." Esmond Bevan did not read the content immediately but flipped to the author page. First author Lin Fan of Jiangbei University. "It really is him, haha, that's great." After Esmond Bevan finished speaking, he began to read the content carefully from beginning to end. As he continued reading, Esmond Bevan became more and more excited. "A new energy car, this is a new energy car. If the data on it is accurate, it will completely overturn the entire automobile industry." At this point, Esmond Bevan quickly took out his phone and dialed the number of the managing editor. Not long after, the chemistry laboratory at Hemp Rope Technology University lit up. Even though it was midnight, many white-haired chemistry experts drove to the laboratory and could not wait to do complicated experiments. Lin Fan was completely oblivious to all of this. Originally, he wanted to go to school for classes today. After all, he had not been to class for a few days, but he had encountered a mission. Additionally, he had already returned home. He was too lazy to go to school. When he arrived at school the next day, he realized that it was Saturday. Lin Fan hesitated for a moment before driving the Cullinan to Yiki City. At this moment, Qiu Ziqian and Huang Ling were sitting on the sofa watching a movie. When they saw Lin Fan's smiling face, they quickly went forward and held Lin Fan's arms. Lin Fan looked at how happy they were. It was as if he had been infected and was very happy as well. Then he took out his phone and transferred 10 million yuan to each of them. "I transferred some money to you guys to buy some clothes." Huang Ling felt the phone in her pocket vibrate and picked it up out of habit. The next moment she immediately opened her mouth wide and said, 10 million. Qiu Ziqian was also shocked. She leaned her head on Lin Fan happily. Then she whispered into Lin Fan's ear, "Actually, we've already bought a lot of clothes. Nurses, teachers, nannies, white-collar workers, 410 shocking, I've invented it." In the chemistry laboratory of Hemp Rope Technology University in America. The intelligent experts in chemical battery who were white-haired and wore presbyopic glasses quickly wrote the reaction equation and discussed it from time to time. In the end, they all focused their attention on the computer screen. 1 hour, 2 hours. Gradually, pages of extremely complicated diagrams and calculations appeared on the screen. Immediately, the crowd erupted in enthusiastic praises. "Oh my God, the power can actually reach such a level. I can't believe my eyes. If this battery is manufactured according to the energy consumption calculation, the endurance of the new energy vehicle can reach more than 2,500 kilometers." Traditional cars will be completely eliminated. The person who researched it is a genius, definitely a genius. The editorial department of Nature quickly received feedback from Hemp Rope Technology University. The editors were well aware of what this research represented. It would definitely shake the world. Therefore, the entire editorial department seized the time and published a full-page supplement on the principle and use of super batteries. Tangyang Car Group. Zacchaeus slowly poured a cup of steaming hot coffee into his mouth. He was extremely satisfied. Krieg. At this moment, the door to the chairman's office was suddenly pushed open. A white man walked in hurriedly. Zacchaeus frowned. I've told you many times, no matter what happens, as long as the sky doesn't fall, you must stay calm. Took a deep breath and said, yes. Zacchaeus nodded in satisfaction and said, tell me what happened. Professor Merriwit, Professor Justice, Professor Brewer, and other battery experts were invited by Nature to review a paper called The Principle and Use of Super Batteries. After their repeated verification, the data in this thesis is completely correct. This super battery can be used in new energy vehicles with a cruising range of more than 2,500 kilometers. Zacchaeus dropped the coffee cup in his hand to the ground. The sky has collapsed. The headquarters of Shuengshan Car in Island Country. Chairman Taro Yamamoto stared at the report in front of him without blinking. A thin layer of sweat gradually seeped out of his forehead. The next moment he stood up abruptly. 2,500 kilometers, 2,500 kilometers. F***CK. In fact, it was not just the automobile industry. When the oil and energy industries saw this thesis, they were completely shocked. As for Lin Fan, who was the one who started all this, he stayed in Yiki City for the weekend, living a blissful life. Monday morning, after Lin Fan ate the breakfast Qiu Ziqian and Huang Ling prepared, he drove the Cullinan to Jiangbei University. Lin Fan had just gotten out of the car. Not far away, two extremely excited voices sounded. Lin Fan followed the voice and saw that it was Professor Li Rongfa and Professor Zhao Zukin. They seemed to have been waiting for Lin Fan here. The moment Lin Fan appeared, they immediately called out. Professor Li, Professor Zhao, good morning, Lin Fan said. Morning, morning, Li Rongfa and Zhao Zukin hurriedly said. Then Li Rongfa said in a solemn yet excited tone, Lin Fan, thank you. Thank you, Zhao Zukin bowed slightly. As they spoke, they took out the latest Nature journal. On the cover was the paper titled The Principle and Use of Super Batteries. Seeing this, Lin Fan nodded his head and said calmly, what are you thanking me for? I watched your experiment and got to write this thesis because of it. You deserve to be the second authors. When Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa heard this, they became even more excited and grateful. What did he mean when he said he only managed to write this thesis after watching their experiment? Their experiment that day was just a very basic new energy experiment. The principle and use of super batteries directly demonstrated the ultimate results of new energy that far surpassed the era. The experiment had nothing to do with it. Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa had no doubt that Lin Fan had already written the thesis. The reason why he came to the laboratory was to find an excuse to take care of them. It was probably the same with the previous super battery thesis. Thinking of this, Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa looked at Lin Fan with gratitude and excitement. They bowed in unison and said sincerely, Lin Fan, we know the truth, thank you. Lin Fan's lips twitched. They knew the truth. However, from the looks of it, they did not seem to know. Forget it, in any case what he said was the truth. He could let them think whatever they wanted. At this moment, another excited shout sounded from behind. Lin Fan. Lin Fan followed the voice and saw that it was the director of the Institute of Science, Feng Jixiang. Feng Jixiang's eyes were bloodshot, as if he had not slept the entire night. In fact, Feng Jixiang did not sleep the whole night. Last night he suddenly found out that Lin Fan had published a paper titled The Principle and Use of Super Batteries. He then took the earliest flight and arrived at Jiangbei overnight. Feng Jixiang ran toward Lin Fan and almost tripped over the door. However, he did not care at all. he hurriedly said, Lin Fan, how far have you gone with your research on the battery? When can it be produced? Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa pricked up their ears. They were also very curious about this. Lin Fan yawned, when, I've already invented it. You invented it? Feng Jixiang's eyes widened and he quickly said, is what you said true? Yes, Lin Fan said. Good, 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 ha ha ha, that's great, Feng Jixiang shouted toward the sky. It was no wonder that he would be like this. One had to know. Since foreign countries developed cars decades earlier than Hua Nation, all kinds of technologies and patents were in their hands. If Hua Nation wanted to develop cars, they had to find another way. After careful research and discussion, Hua Nation finally set its sights on electric vehicles. The super battery that Lin Fan had developed could be used perfectly in electric vehicles, allowing Hua Nation's cars to overtake others. Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa, who were beside them, listened to their conversation. Their jaws dropped and they were completely stunned. Feng Jixiang laughed for a while. Where's the super battery? He asked. Can you take me there? Lin Fan looked at the students coming and going and said, but I have to go to class soon. What's the use of attending classes? Feng Jixiang asked. Zhao Zukin could not help but say, you don't have to go to class. Yeah, Li Rongfa also said. Lin Fan's lips twitched. You guys are the director of the Institute of Science and professors, but you're telling a student that going to classes is useless and that there is no need to go to class. Are you sure there's nothing wrong with your words? Lin Fan looked at their serious and impatient expressions and said, all right, then I'll bring you guys over to take a look. In his heart he thought, looks like I have to skip class again today. Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa quickly said, can we go over and take a look too? They were chemistry professors and mainly studied chemical batteries. Naturally, they were looking forward to the super battery. In their hearts, taking a look at it would be a historic moment. They did not want to miss it. Feng Jixiang could not help but frown. He did not know Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa. In addition, this super battery could be said to be related to the future of Hua Nation's new energy vehicles. He definitely could not let anyone get close. Once the secret was leaked, it would definitely be a matter of regret. Lin Fan also understood what Feng Jixiang was thinking. He introduced, this is Professor Zhao Zukin and Professor Li Rongfa. They're the second authors of the thesis, The Principle and Use of Super Batteries. They also helped me a lot when I invented the super battery. Lin Fan had no intention of lying about this. One had to know. If they had not let him watch their experiment, then there was no way Lin Fan could complete the mission. However, when Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa heard this, they had a different feeling. They were so embarrassed that their old faces turned red. Lin Fan was speaking up for them all the time. In fact, he even wanted to share some of the credit with them. Actually, we didn't help Lin Fan at all, Zhao Zukin said. Yes, Li Rongfa said. They had their names as the second authors. They were already very satisfied. As for giving them a portion of the credit, that would be a little shameful. Feng Jixiang heard Lin Fan's words and nodded. Since that's the case, let's go together. Then Lin Fan opened the door of the Cullinan and got in. Feng Jixiang, Zhao Zukin, and Li Rongfa also followed suit. Although one of them was a director and the other two were professors, they had never sat in a Cullinan. Most people would be very curious when it was their first time sitting in a luxury car like a Cullinan. However, they were not curious at all. There was only anticipation in their hearts, endless anticipation for the super battery. About 20 minutes later, the Cullinan arrived at the Coiling Dragon Villa. Lin Fan pointed at the black cube that was placed on the ground and said, that's it. This is the super battery, Feng Jixiang said in surprise. It's only the size of a desktop computer. As he spoke, he even bent down to lift it. It weighs about 20 kilograms. Then Feng Jixiang continued, Lin Fan, if this super battery is used in a new energy vehicle, how many kilometers can it last? If we don't consider the electrical consumption, Lin Fan said, the car can last for 3,000 kilometers. 3,000 kilometers, Feng Jixiang, Zhao Zukin, and Li Rongfa shouted in shock. A battery the size of a computer weighed only about 20 kilograms and could allow a vehicle to last for 3,000 kilometers. What a terrifying number. The hearts of the three of them thumped like drums. After a long time, Feng Jixiang came back to his senses and asked, Lin Fan, can I bring this super battery back for research? Sure, Lin Fan said. Oh right, I'm preparing to start commercial production of batteries. I should be working with Yati Automobile. Lin Fan, I thank you on behalf of Hua Nation, Feng Jixiang said solemnly. Lin Fan had really helped Hua Nation a lot. Lin Fan waved his hand and said, It's just a small thing, you don't have to mind it. A small matter. He invented a super battery that would completely overturn the traditional car industry and allow Hua Nation's cars to overtake other cars. Just a small matter. Feng Jixiang, Zhao Zukin, and Li Rongfa opened their mouths, not knowing what to say. However, to Lin Fan, this was indeed a small toy. It was because he had the system. Feng Jixiang made a call. About half an hour later, a helicopter slowly landed. A few soldiers walked over with their heads held high. The soldier at the front shouted, Hello, Department Director Feng. Feng Jixiang nodded, then picked up the super battery and said, This is it, sorry to trouble you. This is what we should do, the soldier said. The helicopter was here, and Feng Jixiang now needed to go to Jingbei. He first asked Lin Fan if he wanted to go to Jingbei but was rejected. However, Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa wanted to follow him. One had to know. This was a great opportunity to go to the Institute of Science and study super batteries with many academicians and big names. Feng Jixiang explained some confidential information, and Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa gladly accepted the terms. After the helicopter roared, the group left the coiling dragon villa. Lin Fan was the only one lying on the soft sofa, his face filled with satisfaction. He took out his phone and casually scrolled through the news. He realized that the news was all about super batteries. For a moment, he could not help but feel a little bored. Hence, Lin Fan dialed the number of Wang Fugui, the chairman of Yati Automobile. Yati Automobile. Yesterday, Wang Fugui learned from the technical director that a new type of energy battery had appeared in the latest edition of Nature. Its power far exceeded all the current new energy batteries. According to the calculations, if the research and development were successful, the electric vehicle's range could reach more than 2,500 kilometers. What a terrifying number! Compared to all the existing new energy batteries, it was not an exaggeration to say that the super battery had given them a big blow. When Wang Fugui heard the news, he was not happy. On the contrary, he was very worried. This was because a large part of Yati Automobile's focus was on developing new energy batteries. After years of research, Yati Automobile finally made great achievements and invented the world-leading blade battery. It was because of this that the sales of Yati cars could rise steadily. In order to develop, many new energy vehicle companies chose to spend a lot of money to buy blade batteries. It was not easy for them to develop in this direction. With the appearance of the super battery, perhaps everything would soon turn into nothing. How could Chairman Wang Fugui not be worried? At this moment, Wang Fugui's mobile phone rang. Wang Fugui sighed. After a while, he slowly picked up his phone. When he saw that the caller was Lin Fan, his expression did not change much. A few days ago, Wang Fugui was worried since Lin Fan had 20% of Yati Automobile shares. Now, he had temporarily thrown this matter to the back of his mind. Compared to the shares, the super battery was more of an annoying matter to him. After a while, Wang Fugui answered the call. Hello, Mr. Lin, what's the matter? Wang Fugui said in a tired tone. You should know about the super battery, right? When Wang Fugui heard this, his head hurt even more. Was the major shareholder going to make things difficult for the company because of the incident with the superpower battery? He was being thrown another problem before the first one was even settled. Wang Fugui sighed again. He forced himself to be alert. From the data, the super battery is indeed very impressive. It can even be said to be epoch-making. If it's used on new energy vehicles, it can reduce the dimensions of all the cars on the market today. However, the super battery hasn't been invented yet. All employees of Yadi Automobile are actively preparing a response plan. Mr. Lin, don't worry, our Yadi Automobile will definitely be able to face the trouble that will arise. When Lin Fan heard this, a weird look appeared on his face. A countermeasure. Trouble. Wang Fugui did not know that he was the one who wrote the research paper on super batteries. After a while, Lin Fan said, the super battery has been invented. Wang Fugui's heart skipped a beat. The invention of the super battery. What should Yadi do? Mr. Lin, did you receive any news? Wang Fugui asked hurriedly. Could you please tell me where you learned about the matter? After all, Lin Fan was not an ordinary young man. He was a super big shot who could buy 20% of Yadi Automobile shares. It was normal for him to know some information. Lin Fan said, news? What news? I wrote the thesis that was published in Nature and I invented the super battery. Come to Jiangbei and I'll sign some contracts for the cooperation with Yadi Automobile. Wang Fugui's phone fell to the ground with a crisp sound. Then he quickly picked up his phone and said hello several times, but no one responded. Only then did he realize that the call had been hung up. Wang Fugui could not help but mutter, he wrote the thesis and invented the super battery, this. At this moment there was a series of hurried knocks on the door. Come in, Wang Fugui said. Several directors walked in hurriedly with stacks of documents in their hands. We asked the technicians to resimulate the data from the principle and use of super batteries. The data inside is without error, Chairman Wang. Wang Fugui did not wait for them to finish and interrupted, who's the author of the thesis? The directors flipped through the information in their hands and said, Lin Fan. Lin Fan, ha 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 ha, Wang Fugui threw his head back and laughed. He was so happy that all his worries were swept away. The directors at the side were puzzled. See Chairman Wang, what's wrong? Wang Fugui did not answer. Instead, he picked up his phone and said, Secretary, help me buy a ticket to Jiangbei. Yes, the soonest flight. In the afternoon. After Wang Fugui arrived at the airport, he made his way to the coiling dragon villa without rest. He calmed himself down and pressed the doorbell. Lin Fan slowly opened the door and said, Come in. Wang Fugui had seen Lin Fan's photo and knew that he was very young. However, when he saw him in person, he could not help but be shocked. However, he quickly threw this thought to the back of his mind and hurriedly asked, Mr. Lin, you just said on the phone that you invented the super battery. When he said that, Wang Fugui's heart started to go crazy. This matter was too important to him and the entire Yadi Automobile. Lin Fan nodded, yeah, the patent has been applied for. After saying that, he turned on the tablet, which showed the electronic patent documents. Seeing this, Wang Fugui was so excited that he started trembling. It was true. The super battery was really invented. Yadi Automobile was about to rise completely. What do you think? Lin Fan asked. Wang Fugui took a deep breath and suppressed his excitement. If you give the super battery to our Yadi Automobile, Yadi Automobile can give you another 35% of the shares. In addition, 40% of the profits from the sales of the super batteries will belong to you. Mr. Lin, what do you think? Lin Fan already owned 20% of the shares of Yadi Automobile. Adding on 35% of shares, he would have a total of 55% shares. With more than half of the shares, he would become the largest shareholder of Yadi Automobile. He even had the power to reject proposals. There was also a 40% profit from the super battery. It had to be said that Wang Fugui was sincere. Lin Fan nodded and said, sure. As long as he was not the one managing the company, it did not matter. When Wang Fugui heard this, he was overjoyed. His biggest dream was to develop Yadi Automobile into the world's top car company. Now this dream might be realized very soon. Then he borrowed the computer to hold a meeting with the shareholders and the top management. Even though Wang Fugui was the chairman of Yadi Automobile, he was still just a member of the company. Signing such a major contract still required the approval of the higher-ups and shareholders. An intense debate and explanation ensued. 2 hours later, a contract that was freshly printed appeared in Lin Fan's hands. As usual, Lin Fan flipped through the pages quickly. In less than 10 seconds, he finished reading the thick contract. Then Lin Fan signed his name. Wang Fugui, on the other hand, did not hesitate. He quickly stamped his official seal and signed his name. He held the contract that was still warm, and the blood in his body seemed to boil. After a while, Wang Fugui said, "Mr. Lin, I'll go back to the company first." Even though the sky had already turned completely dark, he wanted to rush back to the company as soon as possible so that Yati Automobile could be fully prepared for the next super battery new energy vehicle. Lin Fan yawned and said indifferently, "All right." Jingbei Institute of Science and Technology. Under the protection of the academicians, the super battery that looked like a computer was brought to the laboratory intact. Then, the academicians could not wait to use many complicated instruments to test it. Not long after, there was a wave of enthusiastic praise. "Unbelievable, it's unbelievable, it actually has so much electricity." Although I've read the thesis, seeing the real thing still makes me feel like it's beyond my imagination. At this moment, an old academician with white hair said to Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa, "Professor Zhao. Professor Li, can you explain the research process and specific principles of the super battery?" When everyone heard this, they all cast expectant gazes. In their eyes, Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa were the second authors of the thesis. They must have participated in the specific project. Other than Lin Fan, they were the only people in the world who had the most in-depth research on super batteries. Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfa blushed when they saw the famous academicians staring at them. "Actually, we don't know much about the super battery. We didn't participate in the research of the super battery. The reason why our names are listed as the second authors is probably because Lin Fan wanted to take care of us." After the two of them finished speaking, they wished they could find a hole to hide in. In a sense, this was academic fraud. The academicians did not pay much attention to this matter, they only looked a little regretful. "It's a waste of talent for a genius like Lin Fan to be a student at Jiangbei University," the old academician sighed. "Director Feng, can't we let him come to the Institute of Science? If he wants to stay in Jiangbei, we can move the entire Institute of Science there." For the sake of one person, they would move the entire Institute of Science. How sincere was this? Feng Jixiang pondered and said, I'll find a chance to get Lin Fan's opinion. In my opinion, we can first establish a research institute or a branch in Jiangbei. Even if Lin Fan doesn't come, everyone will have a chance to interact with him." The old academician said happily, "Director Feng, you finally have a good suggestion." "Are you saying that I didn't have a good suggestion before?" Feng Jixiang glared at him. "I didn't say that, haha," the old academician said with a smile. Lin Fan did not know anything about what was happening at the Institute of Science. At this moment, he was lying on the soft sofa and yawning out of boredom. After a while, his attention fell on the 553 red packets displayed on the screen. They were from the money he spent during his 1-month stay in Hong Kong. Lin Fan muttered, "I only spent 5 million in a month." One had to know. Lin Fan's daily income was close to 20 million, and this did not include the dividends and his rental yield. 5 million a month was indeed too little. "Let's see what I can get first. Do you wish to open the 553 red packets?" "Yes." "Ding, congratulations, you've received 3 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 1,999 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained 51% of Lianjia Real Estate's shares. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained 1 Rolls-Royce Phantom. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained a 1 yuan critical hit card." From the 553 red packets, he got a total of 132,991 yuan. He also got a Rolls-Royce Phantom that cost about 10 million yuan. There was also the 1 yuan critical hit card that would allow him to earn 100 million yuan if he spent 1 yuan. Lin Fan did not care about these. He immediately placed his attention on the 51% shares of Lianjia Real Estate. Lianjia Real Estate was the largest real estate company in Huan Nation. with a market value of about 100 billion. 51% of the shares was about 50 billion yuan. Lin Fan touched his nose and smiled. Han Tian works at Lianjian. If she knows that I've become the major shareholder, I wonder what her expression would be like. At this moment, Lin Fan's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was his sister, Lin Xiaoyao. Brother, as soon as the call connected, Lin Xiaoyao's voice rang out. Your brother is not deaf. Lin Fan rubbed his ears. Did you invent that car battery? Lin Xiaoyao asked excitedly. Yup, Lin Fan said. Then did you get 35% of Yati's shares? Lin Xiaoyao asked again. Yes, Lin Fan said. F***CK, Lin Xiaoyao shouted. Lin Fan rubbed his ears and said, Xiaoyao, don't be so shocked. However, he could only hear a burst of laughter over the phone. Obviously, Lin Xiaoyao did not hear him. Lin Fan could not help but shake his head and slowly press the end call button. Just as he hung up, Lin Fan's phone rang again. Initially, Lin Fan thought that Lin Xiaoyao had called him back. However, when he looked closely, he realized that it was an unfamiliar number from an city. Lin Fan did not hesitate and answered the call. Hello, is this Mr. Lin? A slightly respectful voice sounded from the phone. Lin Fan said, It's me, who are you? After hearing Lin Fan's reply, the voice on the phone became even more respectful and excited. Hello, Mr. Lin, I'm the chairman of Lianjia Real Estate, Zhang Weiman. Compared to the chairman of Yati Automobile, Yinshin Group, Penguin Group, and Little Tanuki Group, who felt helpless when they found out that a large number of their company's shares had been bought by others. Zhang Weiman was even more open-minded. This was because the entire real estate industry had been in a slump recently. Lianjia was also on the verge of incurring losses. Now that someone had bought the company's shares, it meant that the person had confidence in his company. That person was saving Lianjia. It was a good thing. Lin Fan said, so it's Chairman Zhang, hello. Please don't call me Chairman Zhang, Zhang Weiman hurriedly said. You can just call me Lil Zhang. Lin Fan had received similar requests many times before. Therefore, he did not find it too strange and said, I'll just call you by your name, Weiman. All right, Mr. Lin, you can call me whatever you want, Zhang Weiman said. Mr. Lin, you seem to be in Jiangbei. Yes, Lin Fan replied. That's great. Not long ago, Lianjia built a central headquarters in Jiangbei. I wonder if you have time to give some guidance. In addition, you can decide the future development direction of Lianjia, Zhang Weiman said. The central headquarters. Decide on the future development of Lianjia. Lin Fan had never been interested in such things and was prepared to reject him. However, he thought of something and said, all right.